in America. It doesn't belong to our government, it belongs to you. Know where we stand, know what we do, but tonight we're not going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about a story that is very intriguing, of interest. Um, Probably a story that a lot of your younger folks have no clue about, or haven't done any research into our history. They may know, they may a president and may know his name, but I don't think they know a lot about him. But this is going to be a great opportunity to talk to Fred Nicholas Shisheli. He's got a book out called JFK Jailed for Kennedy, and I couldn't do it justice. So I'm going to let him tell you all about it, and we'll have some questions along the way. But before we do that, I want you to watch this trailer, and we'll be right back.
All this began the moment Fred Shisheli came home from the 4th grade to see his mother crying about the death of the president. Unknowingly, his life would change forever. Meeting U.S. presidents, hobnobbing with movie stars, a visit to the Oval Office, Air Force One, and many more Hollywood and TV Kennedy productions called to use his famous iconic duplicate 1961 Lincoln. The collection also landed Mr. Shisheli in jail for a year, serving a contempt of court charge for refusing to hand over 100% of his collection. This book will tell a journey through time. Take a walk with him in his 60-year journey in the shadow of John F. Kennedy.
And Fred, welcome to the show. It is a honor and a pleasure to have you here. I've just been to the thought of this whole process, is amazing because I'm a big history buff. I love the history of the presidents. That's one of the things that I think kind of migrated me toward the politics of things. And you kind of tell a little story about when you started figuring out who John F. Kennedy was. And I remember, for me, it was Robert F. Kennedy that I remember the first time somebody got hurt really bad. I didn't understand it. I was pretty young. And at that time, I was 7 years old. And then he was assassinated. I had to figure out what the word assassinated was. And we talked about it in school. So for me, that was kind of and the train ride. Remember the train ride?
Yeah,
The
yeah. Bobby
casket who
Kennedy.
just went over. Yeah. So I remember that just like it was yesterday. While I didn't understand the grasp of everything back then, I knew something really bad had happened to him. And then, through learning about it in school and whatnot, of course, we were in elementary school. But the reality is it's always tragic of these things. But what we want to talk about tonight is your story. So feel free to. I'm gonna turn it over to you, and you can kind of explain it to because folks, just to let you know, I'm now just hearing the story myself. So I'm looking very much forward to this. So I'm gonna turn the stage over to you, Fred.
Okay. I will tell you, when you played the introduction there, it still brings a tear to my eye. It's still very painful to know that someone threw you in jail because you said you can't have 100% of my collection. But starting from the beginning, very quickly, actually, I was in the 4th grade. We were studying U.S. presidents. We were on Kennedy that very day, that November 22nd. But on the 21st, I told my teacher, I'm going to meet him when I grow up. I never knew what a president was until that day before. And no big deal. I was going to meet him. The next day, my principal walks in, Haley Billmeyer, and my teacher, Mrs. Reuter, and they start crying. Well, I never saw on a 12-year-old kid, 9-year-old kid, I never saw anybody cry before. I never saw an adult cry. Okay. And I was wondering what happened. Teachers don't cry, policemen don't cry, people like that you look up to back then. She walked right up to me and said, "You'll never meet him." And I said, "Who?" She said, "The president has had an accident. He's dead. You're excused. Everybody go home." So I went home on the bus. Everybody else is doing spitwads. They're having a good time hanging out the windows. And I remember looking out the window feeling the word depressed for the first time in my life, but I didn't know why. I didn't understand my feelings. The crying kind of bothered me. So when I finally got home, there was my mother bawling her eyes out. Never saw my mother cry in my life. My dad came home from Ford Motor Company. He was glassy eyed. I asked my mom, "What's wrong?" And she said, "The president's dead." And I said, "Yeah, I heard that." And she said, "I loved him." I go, "What do you mean you loved him?" She says, "President Kennedy was like a son to me." What do you mean? And she said, "He was like a son to every mother." She cried so hard. That night I made her a scrapbook. I went and bought newspapers, and I still have that scrapbook today. My mother was my biggest fan. My mother connected me with things when she saw in the paper or the TV show. Hey, there's something on Kennedy tonight. I can't explain. My mother was my greatest fan. Ironically, in November of 2013, a day before the 50th anniversary, my biggest fan, my mom, went to the grocery store. I told her on Wednesday, "Ma, would you go to the grocery store and buy me 2 newspapers? I'm going to be on the front page for November 22nd. Well, it'll be on for Thursday." She said, "You usually want 10." I said, "Just give me 2." She said, "Okay." I'm in Dallas for the 50th anniversary. I get a call, and my mother had a stroke. She actually walked out the door and told the people before. She said, "Look at my son. He had the Kennedy car, made movies, he owned McDonald's." My mother just bragged. And she said, "This is the happiest day of my life." Not because I was in the paper. She had went to the Ford Motor Company picnic for wives, and she was won the $5,000 thing in bingo when I was there for 3 months. And she went to her car, and she had a stroke in her car, and there were the 2 newspapers in the car. That's where it all began. So for 60 years from this time, I have 10,000 items on Kennedy. I was married. I had a McDonald's restaurant at 26. I had 5 of them. I had a Domino's Pizza at 23. Ironically, when I met Tom Monahan, who's the founder of Domino's, he asked me, "Where'd you get $100,000 on this application?" And I said, "I don't have $100,000." And this is 1977. And I said, "That's my dad's money, but I had to get in here and talk to you." So he said to me, "Oh, so you lied?" I said, "No, I don't know what came, the chicken or the egg, the cart or the horse, what come first?" And he kind of excused it, and he kind of laughed, and he goes, "You have any money?" And I said, "I'm a manager of McDonald's. I don't have any money. I got a baby on the way. I have 2 other ones already." He says, what do you do for fun? You play golf?" And I go, "No." He goes, "You like the Detroit Lions?" And I said, "No." "How about the Tigers?" I'm from Detroit. And I said, "No." He goes, "What do you do for fun? What's your hobby?" So my wife says, "Tell him." You're not going to believe what I'm going to tell you. I almost fell off my chair. I said, "Well, one day I'm going to build Kennedy's car. I'm going to have people remember him, not for his death, but for his life. That car went around the world. I'm going to have the largest collection of Kennedy memorabilia. I'm going to keep his memory around for my mom and for other people like my mom." And I said, "I'm going to build a museum, and then I'm going to travel with it around the country." Well, guess what? Tom Monahan looks at me and says, "I was in the Marines." And I said, "Yeah, I see the diploma behind you." He says, "Guess who bunked right next to me?" Lee Harvey Oswald.
Wow.
He bought me he bought me my store. He financed my Domino's Pizza at 23.
Wow.
That's how it all started.
But that's, what, because there was that bond, that connection of what, things happen sometimes. You go, wow, that you couldn't, if you would have tried to do that, that wouldn't have happened.
Today, yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah, but just that happenstance of running across something of that is just unbelievable.
Yeah,
wow.
I end up building a museum in Kissimmee. It didn't last long. It was tough to get people to come in there to compete against Disney World.
Yeah.
So I went on the road with it. I've traveled to 26 states. Over 3 million people have seen it, mainly in casinos and fairs. But casinos is a better venue. I get a whole broad range of people. But in 1997, it was time for me to get a divorce. And we split up the McDonald's and all the cash, and everything was fine. And I said, "Well, what about my Kennedy collection?" "I don't want that." I said, "Okay." I moved from South Carolina, Spartanburg, South Carolina, where I had a couple more stores, moved back to Florida. All of a sudden, I got somebody at my door, and it's a process server. I said, "Who are you?" And he said, well, I got you for, you got to be in court here for your Kennedy collection. So they pursued me with all kinds of depositions. Where's my collection? They wanted my collection. And I put them off for a couple years. I did everything I could not to answer that door, hide from them. I did everything I could. So finally, one day, I look outside and there's two SWAT team guys out there, almost like they do, with
Yeah.
political people. Okay.
Yeah. Recently.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And guy knocks at my door and he goes, are you Fred Shisheli? And I said, yeah. I go, come on in. They come in. They said, they show me a piece of paper. They said, is this your wife? And I said, no, that's my daughter. He said, what's your daughter got a beef with you for? I said, what does it say? He says, it says you harassed her on the phone. I said, well, I called her a few days ago or a week ago, and I said, whatever, and I gave her a birthday gift and some money, and she basically told me, until you give mom that collection or another $225,000, don't talk to me anymore. And I said, okay, and we hung up. That's harassment. He says, listen, I got to take you in. I go, take me in where? He said, I got to take you to jail. I go, for what? He says, you'll be out tomorrow. He goes, this is a bunch of crap. If this happened here in Florida, we would call you and say, stop. There's no proof. I said, okay. Well, I didn't get out for a year. I didn't come home for an entire year. I was sitting in jail for about a month, and they wouldn't let me go because the charge for contempt was holding me in. The charge for the jail thing, for that phone thing, was not a problem, but I couldn't get out for the contempt. So I did not know it then. You're a police officer. I did not know that I would not be extradited on a so-called misdemeanor.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. Well, I said, you know what? Take me back in a police car. I won't go back in a wagon or whatever. You take me back in a police car. Let's get this settled, because I had another Domino's pizza purchased in California. It was ready to go. It was almost done. And I said, well, let's go get this over with. I've been handing out Happy Meals for 25 years since I was 15. Mm-hmm. So let's just go get this over with. When I got there, I was in handcuffs and shackles and going through the jail, not the jail, but the courthouse. They handed me the contempt. Are you Fred Shisheli? I said, last time I looked. And they dropped the charge on the phone because there was nothing there. Mm-hmm. So, by the way, I got the judge, Georgia V. Anderson, and I got the attorney, Grace Dunbar. Now she's Judge Knie, Knie. She's now a judge. I got them all in trouble for conspiracy. I wrote letters, good letters. I got them all in trouble for what they did because they used a crime, a potential crime, to get me on a civil matter, which you know what that is.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's just not. I mean, well, they're doing it now for the politicians. So I mean, it's just it's dirty pool. It to do something like that, it compromises their integrity, because they lost their integrity on that. Once you lose it, you don't get it back. Integrity is the only thing you can you have to give away. Nobody can take it from you, and they gave it away.
My attorneys, I had 3 of them, went through a lot of money, went through 3 of them, and I started reading the rules of court, South Carolina, and the rules of court, U.S. So I figured out kind of what was doing. People were kind of showing me what to do. And it turned out that I asked the lawyer once, because they did put me in jail for a weekend when I was still in South Carolina. They wanted my collection. And I said, let me out. I'll bring it to you. Well, I didn't bring it to them. Mm-hmm. So I said, isn't that double jeopardy? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. Yeah. Too. Yeah.
And they said, and I said, you got to get me out of here. And he said, oh, I can't get you out of here. It doesn't work in a family matter in family court, which was a lie. Even my lawyer lied to me. So anyway, I go to jail, and they run me in, and when I went to court, how the court thing came up was I was actually in a courtroom for 5 days. And the judge said to me, Mr. Shisheli, I want 100% of your Kennedy collection. I said, Your Honor, I gave her $300,000 or $400,000. We sold my McDonald's, houses, everything else. Why do I have to give you 100% of my collection? That's not fair to me. And she said, who said I have to be fair? And I said, Your Honor, Judge Anderson, it's your fiduciary duty. Nothing about duty to split. And she says, well, I either want you or I want that collection. And I said, what do you mean by that? She goes, I'll put you in jail. So I sat there for a minute with my attorney and I didn't know what to do, whatever. And she said to me, I'm going to so order you for 1 year in jail, no more than 1 day and 1 year in the county jail in Spartanburg, South Carolina. I know I am treading on thin ice. I've conferred with other judges. I don't know what the hell that meant. You're going to jail. I hereby order you to jail. Now, this is the funny part about it. I put on my Clint Eastwood confidence face. Okay. I had the Clint Eastwood, face on, but inside I was a cream puff. I looked at that judge and I said, okay, because you're never getting my collection. She said, do you want to go to jail? I said, Your Honor, I'm not even going to answer that question, but here's how I will answer it. I'm kind of hungry. Do they serve dinner?
Oh, Lord. Yeah, you poked the bear. You poked the bear. Oh, Lord. Yeah, that'll do it every day of the week. Yep.
Let me tell you about jail.
Yeah.
I thought the guards were psychopaths. I mean, they talked to you like you were just dirt. It was unbelievable. I got to know all the guards at 3 or 4 pods I was transferred to. I was in with criminals, arsonists. I was in with somebody who threatened Chelsea Clinton, who was sleeping on the floor one day. We were overcrowded. There were fights in there. And I was kind of bored, obviously, in there. I was out of my element. And I said to the guard, I said, hey, is there any way I can help you guys in your food service deal? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, I had McDonald's restaurants. We have an hour to eat. You guys aren't done feeding us guys until like 55 minutes. Some guys only got 5 minutes to eat. I'll make you a deal. If you put me in charge of your food service, I'll get these guys done in 35 minutes, but I want to eat all the food I want. And the 3 people I'm going to pick to help me, I want them to eat all the food I want. He said, you're kidding. I said, go talk to the chief. Comes back. He says, you got it. So the first guy, I said, the only thing I want you to do is I want you to fill the ice cups. That's all I want you to do. I don't want these trays to get empty. He says, okay, what about you? I want you to fill it with iced sweet tea. That's all I want you to do. How about you? I want you to take it from the container and hand it out. And he asked me, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to watch you. I'm not going to do anything. He goes, that's not fair. I said, I'm getting you guys all you want to eat. After that, we had that going. And so,
Well, you know what? And see, you had a system. You figured out a system, and everybody else was kind of, they're in there playing ping pong, and you're out there playing basketball. You're not. It's a whole different game. I mean, but yes, if the food industry and McDonald's has always been the one that gets it to you. And now Chick-fil-A, look at all them. They probably got the best setup drive-through
best in the world.
Yeah,
best in the world.
Everybody will get through it quick.
There was a time too that I noticed these guys were going through nicotine withdrawal. Well, I had money coming in every month. I had my friend from my bank account sending me $100 a month. So I said, I told the guys, you go in there at canteen. I said, give me a couple packs of cigarettes. And the guy said, you don't smoke. I said, I know I don't, but just give me a pack of cigarettes, a couple packs. So what I would do was I said to the guy, look, I'll give you 3 cigarettes tomorrow morning for your breakfast. Then this is before the, it took me a while, 6 months, I think, 5 or 6 months to figure out how to get that deal going with the food. So This was before that. And they would say, well, 3 cigarettes, that's not enough. I said, no problem. There's 68 guys in here. They'll take 3 cigarettes. No. Okay. So here I am sitting next to that person. And when the guard turned around, you'll love this being a police officer, and you've been in jails before.
Oh yeah. I worked them before.
You've seen that. You've watched them. So we would switch trays and I handed them cigarettes. And so I ate well the first 5 months also. But it sounds funny now, but believe me, it was tough. It was tough for me as a businessman, a family man, who I've never been in a courtroom in my life. It was the first time even being in a courtroom, and a judge sends me to jail for an entire year.
And that, it's sad because back then even now, I've seen judges send send people upstairs. Well, I say upstairs, but I started out my profession in the jail, working the jail. I got sued one time, and it was a pitiful lawsuit. But I got sued twice. I had an inmate in there, and he was just most hateful, arrogant, sarcastic. You're gonna do what I tell you to do, or life's gonna be miserable, and I'm gonna be miserable. And so I walked by there one day, and it was kind of in the evening, time to bed. Everybody had to go to bed, and we're shutting everything down. And he says to me, "I'm a diabetic. Um, Give me a Snicker." And I was like, "What? Give you a Snicker? What do you mean, give you a Snicker?" He said, "Yeah, give me a Snicker." And I'm like, he says, the Snickers. I need some Snickers. I said, "Well, hold on, I'll be right back." I walked to the end of the hallway area, hall area. I said, "Okay, I'll be right." I come back. I said, "Here, come here." He goes, "Yeah, you got them." I said, "Yeah." And I walked off. So I had to give him a Snicker. Well, next thing I know, I'm getting a letter from the county attorney saying I'm being sued by this guy because I kept him from getting any candy, and it caused his diabetes to act up, and it was very difficult for him to sleep that night because I didn't give him.
Unbelievable.
And I was like, "You got to be kidding." So I went through that whole process, but it was like, and of course it didn't even make it through summary judgment. They kicked it out, and there was another. So when I look back at some of those suits, they were all silly suits. There was nothing to them.
Yeah.
But government, and it gets back to the same thing with government, just like the presidency we were talking earlier. The government has a way to get involved in things, and I'm sure as you travel through that with the Kennedy, and I guess it's not a Kennedy expose. It's like a little museum that you take with you and you put up. How long does it take you to set that thing up?
It takes 38 man hours to set it up. It takes me 2 full days, 2 18-hour days, 2 people, because everything has to be hand placed one at a time in all the cases. There's 4 TV screens, all in his life, no assassination. The 4 videos were done for me by Don Webb out of Miami. He was a radio personality. We dubbed it in, we put music in. So it tells a story of his whole life, PT 109, the family, the Great Debate, September 23rd, 1960, with him and Richard Nixon. I've met so many great people. Even Kathleen Kennedy Townsend was in my Lac Flambeau, Wisconsin casino. She actually opened up the museum. When she walked through the night before, the guy who I was with, who I took everywhere with me, my famous assistant manager, Mike, he said, "Did you just see who walked through here?" And I said, "No." He goes, "Kathleen Kennedy." I didn't notice her. So I got a call about 5 minutes later from the tribal chief, because it was an Indian casino, Lac Flambeau, Wisconsin. He said, "Listen," he said, "we're going to do a ribbon cutting tomorrow with President Kennedy's niece, but she does not want to be photographed anywhere near that car." And I could understand the sensitivity of that. That was his death trap, actually.
Right.
But it takes good to set it up. Let me just point this out. The book is really not about jail. Only the last chapter and the epilogue and the beginning. And the beginning, the foreword, is actually written by Jim Lavelle, who was the detective who was handcuffed to Lee Harvey Oswald when Jack Ruby shot him. So I have a pretty famous guy doing the foreword for me. But it's about making 11 Hollywood movies, meeting movie stars, and traveling the country. And a lot about McDonald's and Domino's, because it kind of fits in. And you can see this thing behind me. This was in my McDonald's. I actually had a picture of Kennedy. I was at a McDonald's in Miami. So I had it put in the shadow box with arches put in it. And so I had the Kennedy McDonald's. Although today McDonald's does not do any more themes. You won't see a theme in a McDonald's anymore. They don't allow that. So they kind of went very generic, I guess.
Yeah, unfortunately, everybody feels like they can't do and say what they want, and how society's just definitely changed. It used to be you'd see these commercials. You remember there was old commercials, the old Sinclair stations,
sure.
the dinosaurs, and when you go get the blow up dinosaur when you go in there, and when you're a kid, it looks like this huge thing that barely fits in the back seat, but as you get
Yeah.
older, you find out it was probably about that big, and you blow it up, and there you are. Um, the green stamps that you pick at a service station for getting gas.
Yeah, I
I
remember
mean,
that.
so
Yep.
you think back about all these promos, that used to go on. It was just, I remember one growing up. It was the Sunoco stations when they were doing the football player stamps, and you would put them in the books, and you would collect them, and you'd have every team would be listed out in this book, and it was a stamp, and you had to place that stamp in that, and the only way you could get it was to go to get gas at this certain group of gas stations, which was the Sun Oil Company. It was Sunoco, and those things take up. You don't see anything like that. Well, first of all, you don't see people
No.
servicing your car, and all that kind of stuff. We do have
Yeah.
we do have one close to here to where you pull up to the service station and the guy still comes out and gives you service. He fills your tank up.
Oh
You
Lord.
sit there,
Yeah.
and he runs out. And he doesn't want you to get out of the car and tells you to stay in your car. And he comes out and does your windshield and the whole bit. I mean, and he's the owner of the service station. So you see
Well, you
those.
you you probably remember in the early '80s when McDonald's was trying to get breakfast going. We gave away coffee mugs.
Mhm.
We gave away Bic razors for them to come in. How come in the early morning and get a Bic
Mhm.
razor. We had such great promotions at McDonald's to get that going. They don't do it anymore. It's just not done.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was a different time in a different place, and uh, but
Well, you had to work for your
yeah,
business back then. You couldn't just sit back and it depend on everything be television, but you had to work for your business, and you had to work to keep it. You know.
yes, that's true. Yeah, you had to do that back. Today, a lot of it's driven by national advertising,
Right.
which basically they're all on the same page. All the promotions
Right.
are generic, and actually they're doing well. The average store today they're making more money today, average owner operator at McDonald's,
Right.
than they ever have been.
Yep. What would that? So the car. Let's talk about the car. What did you have
The
to do to
car,
get that car like it is?
well, there's two
Right.
cars. In the movie with Martin Sheen and Blair Brown,
Mhm.
1983, you probably remember seeing it. It was NBC miniseries over a period of a couple nights. It was just called Kennedy, and they had they had his name on the screen, Kennedy, with blood on it. That was on TV, and Martin Sheen played Kennedy. When that was over, I called the prop master who built the car, and I said, "Where's this car? I want to buy it." He says, "I sold it to Kevin McDonald." I said, "Who's he?" He goes, "Some collector of a Lincoln. He wants to rebuild Kennedy's car." So I said, "Well, can you make me a car?" So he made me a car. He made me a pretty good copy of Kennedy's
Mhm.
car, and it was about $30,000 back then. Not bad. It's $30,000. This is 1983. Okay, this is 1983, um, and it was okay. I did parades with it with the local sheriff Nick Navarro, very
I
famous
remember him.
Cuban sheriff down here, very famous guy. I did a lot of parades with Sheriff Nick, and one day someone called me and said, "Your car's for sale." And I said, "No, it's not." He goes, "It's in Hemmings Motor News." I said, "No way." I looked at it and I said, "That ain't my car. That car is perfect." So I found out who he was. I got on a plane and I flew to New Jersey. And when I saw that car pulled out of that funeral home, because that's where he kept it, 21 feet long, I said, "Why are you selling this car?" He says, "Well, I don't know what to do with it." "Well, you built it." He said, "Yeah, but the unique thing is Kevin McDonald built that car from the same blueprints from Hess and Eisenhart out of Cincinnati, Ohio. He got to know Bill Hess, and Bill Hess gave him a copy of the plans. And he's the only one in the world that
Right.
has a copy of the plans of the car. Only one in the world. I bought the car from him. Took me a year to pay it off. I borrowed some money from here and there. My dad, a friend of mine, sold the other car. It went and ended up going to Europe. And my other car right now is in Estonia, believe it or not. I don't know what it's doing in Estonia, but that's where my original car is. So I took this car That's what I built my museum in Kissimmee called JFK Remembered. I made it 10 months and I went broke after 10 months at $125,000 in construction and glass and movies. I just couldn't compete. So I closed it up, and then I took all the artifacts, the cases, and I did a traveling museum. But the car, it is a big pull. I mean, the car's kind of the centerpiece. It is kind of eerie, actually, even when I look at it, it's kind of eerie. But I will tell you this: over the last 3 or 4 years, I drive down the street with that car. People don't even know what's going on. They're tailgating you. Some do. Some go crazy with with the cameras and everything else. But the car is, it's a one of a kind. I would like to build the X100, the quick fix. Mm-hmm. I'd like to build the 61 that Johnson used, which is the same car. Actually, they redid it. The black one. I kind of would like to do that. I'm kind of thinking about it. But
so the original color, the one that Kennedy was in, what color was that one?
It was a Kennedy blue. What a great story. They went to Kennedy and they said, we're painting your car black. And he said, I want it blue. Bring me 6 colors of blue. And Kennedy had a cigar in his mouth, and this is in the Oval Office, and he puts the 6 colors in front of him. And he says, this here. He says, go get me an executive order. He signs an executive order. No cars to be painted this color. This is Kennedy blue.
That's funny.
And that executive order, stuck. The closest you can get to this color, I'll tell you what's really close. It's very hard to tell the difference, to me even. But I do have the paint code if anybody wants
That'd be interesting.
Rock that color. I do have it. Be happy to share it. It's 1984 Chrysler blue. It's all, I mean, it's close. Mm-hmm. I kind of almost can't tell the difference, but I can, but the average person will not be able to tell the difference. Kennedy blue. But painted blue. Great story what happened. When they went and redid the car, it was returned to President Johnson. It pulled up in the south portico of the White House. Johnson stepped out. He looks at the car, and his favorite word was "goddamn." That was Johnson. That was his 2 favorite words.
Yeah, I remember that.
He said, "Get that goddamn car out of here and paint it black." And they listened to the car. Went, get me my car, boys. Get me my car. And they went back and painted it black. And ironically, which is very a sick story, Johnson invited Bobby Kennedy. And there's pictures if you Google it. Bobby Kennedy and Jackie Kennedy sat in the back of that car. Okay. Johnson knew that car was Kennedy's car. Johnson knew, but Jackie and Robert Kennedy thought it was just another Lincoln. It was black. It was a little different inside, not much different. Okay. So it must be another car. They didn't give it a bat and eyelash, and Johnson knew, old Bobby. Yeah, this is where your brother got killed.
Yeah, that's kind of from all accounts I've heard that he was a jackass. LBJ was a jackass from day one, and then all the things he supposedly done because of a civil rights movement. When you go back, had nothing to do with the civil rights and everything about owning people and having people come to you, kind of like the concept of the New Deal. Once you feed people and you do things, they feel like they can't break away from it, and now they're going to keep coming back, and then you get them to do what you want. That's kind of but he was the ring bearer of that kind of behavior. He
was a pig.
Yeah.
You mentioned about the car. I'm going to tell you a story that I don't know if anybody believes it, but this story would only be told to me. Would not be told to anybody else. In I was in Texas doing a rodeo show with the Kennedy exhibit. It was just a 7-day show. And, we're all set up and ready to go, and it's open, and, there's the car sitting there. And there's this guy walking through, and he's staring at it. And he's got really gray, bushy hair, kind of long, kind of disheveled guy. And he kept looking at me, and he kept looking at the car, and I'm like, well, this is going to be a good one. So he walks around, he sits down, and he has a book of pictures. Now, the car wasn't in the picture, and he's showing me that he was with the CIA. And what he tells me at the end of the story was unbelievable. Now, he's showing me his ID. You could tell it's old, it's chipped. I mean, this guy was the real McCoy. There's no question about it. And I said, are you still in the CIA? He goes, well, you never really leave. And I asked him what he did. He was an analyst or something. I said, okay. He says, that's not the real car. And I said, well, I know that. He goes, yeah, we got the real car in Quantico. I laughed. My son's sitting next to me. And Dennis is sitting on the other side, my other traveling buddy. And I go, what do you mean a car's sitting in Quantico? He said, we have that car in Quantico in a room. It's locked. And I've been in the room and I've seen the car. And I said, impossible. They rebuilt the car. Ferguson drove it to Vaughn Ferguson, the head of Ford Motor Company, head of the Secret Service car. He was the liaison between the Secret Service. He drove the car. He goes, yeah. But that car they rebuilt was not Kennedy's car. I said, okay. Never thought nothing of it. I left the show. 30 years later, let's forward to 2017-18. I have my car parked backwards. It can't be parked towards the car coming. The Secret Service told me to park the car the other way, so they think you're going to ram parade. So I parked backwards. So I'm along the curb. I'm just jump the curb with the car. I've got the bubble top off. The flags are on it. Music's playing. President Trump wasn't there yet. That you have several vehicles come before the president.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And a black SUV pulls up, rolls down his window, and he goes like this to me. I go, yeah, okay. He goes, how you doing? I go, fine. He said, I know it's not the real car, but we admire it at every parade you go to. And he tells me some people who saw it, and I said, okay. He goes, we got the real car in Quantico. And I said, what? He says, yeah, it's in a locked room. It's in Quantico. I have seen it. No, it's in Dearborn. He goes, that's not the real car in Dearborn. And I said, next time I go there, I'm checking the VIN number. He said, I'm telling you, we have the car in Quantico. And I looked at him and I said, you're the second person in 35 years since 1988, 90 that told me this. And he goes, well, I'm just telling you, we got the car. And he drove away. Now, I didn't imagine this. I didn't have a dream of this. I didn't make up the story. This happened.
Right.
Now, I don't know what they're talking about. They have something in Quantico. I've talked to a Secret Service agent. I don't know if he's no, he wasn't Secret Service. He was FBI. And he said, I've been to Quantico. There's no car there. I said, well, maybe you've been there, but there's something there. Now, when I went and visited Randy Mason, who was the curator of the library in Henry Ford Museum, now it's called the Henry Ford now.
Right.
I said, do you mind if I go sit in the car? He goes, we know who you are. We've been seeing all your stuff for years. Yeah, go ahead. I could go in the car. He said, yes, you can. My mother, my father, and my son were the only people with me. Wife had never interested in Kennedy. She didn't like the guy for her own reasons. And so I sat in the car, and Randy Mason came by and he goes, you like it? And I said, yeah, I'm trying to figure out what I can lift from the car, but there's nothing to take. And he laughed, and I said, so what's the deal with this car? He says, the Secret Service comes here once a year and they say nothing, but they sit in the car. A group of them sit in the car and do nothing. They just sit in the car. And I said, why? He said, they won't tell me. I don't ask, but they say our annual visit, they're all new recruits and they sit in that car. And the only thing I can think is we discuss is probably something psychological.
Yeah.
That we lost the president in this car and this is how fast you have to react. And that 2 seconds you did not react, he lost his life. So you need to react, There's no thinking involved.
Yeah.
And that's what I think happened at that
I think
museum.
it's to me, it would be a very quiet, somber time to reflect of the
Yeah.
significance of the car. And that to me, it would be at the end of the day, the only thing that survived it was the car itself that tells the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
So I think it's like this is the last. This was the death carriage that carried the last president that was assassinated.
I'll tell you what's the most valuable thing to me beside the car. The car is not my number one valuable item.
Mhm.
The number one valuable item is President Kennedy's old brown jewelry box that his father gave to him in 1946 when he became a congressman.
Mhm.
And it has the family crest on it. Okay, and you open it up, and all his jewelry is in there. His black onyx cufflinks, his Christian Dior, his Tiger Eye, Jackie Kennedy's bracelets in there, a holy water bottle. His scapula is in there, Catholic. The Secret Service pin is in there. It was a triangle with a yellow triangle with the black dot. That was for one of the towns he was in because they wear different pins to identify each other. But Marty Underwood, who was a friend of, obviously worked with Kennedy as a advance man. I went to visit Marty, and he has this jewelry box, and he got it specifically for me from Kennedy's appointment secretary, O'Donnell. He was dead, but the wife was alive. And he said, I want to help you build the collection, and I've talked her into selling this stuff to you. The jewelry box was taken to the LBJ ranch that day. He was going to stay there, and he was going to go quail hunting with Vice President Johnson. He was going to leave Sunday. Well, he went quail hunting once with him and rabbit hunting once with him during the campaign. And it's a fascinating story. When they went out there, there was a rabbit. And Johnson said, Jack, shoot it. Jack, shoot. Jack, shoot. Pull it. Jack, shoot. And he kills the rabbit. Kennedy walked up to the dead rabbit. I remember he had a rendezvous with death. That was his favorite poem. I have a rendezvous with death. Anybody knows Kennedy knows that. And he looked down at that rabbit and he said, why did I kill this poor animal? And he walked away, visibly upset, walked fast back to the ranch. So I from his people that I've spoken to, who told me he wasn't going to shoot any damn thing with Lyndon Johnson. He'll go carry a gun, but he's going to let Johnson do all the killing. Ironically, as that sounds.
Yeah, ironically, right? Yeah.
The sweater was packed, and then they packed the sweater, and it was given by Jackie to the president on his birthday on May 29th of 63. Here at Camp David, but I'm not sure if it was Camp David or if it was the White House because there was two different parties. But so there's no pictures of the sweater with him on it. But Dave Powers sent me a note and said this was Kennedy's sweater and this was Kennedy's jewelry box. But the jewelry box and the sweater together, to me, are more valuable monetary wise than the car.
Along the way, have you ever been able to pick up John F. Kennedy's signature?
I have 3 or 4 of his signatures. I was in a bookstore in North Carolina. I think it was Hendersonville. Is that in North Carolina? That's in the
mountains. Yes, that's where the apple orchards are really big.
Oh, you'll love this. I was in Hendersonville, and there was a middle of nowhere. There's a record store in the middle of nowhere, and I walked in. There's records everywhere, and I see Kennedy in the East Room of the White House with Pablo Casal, the famous celloist from Spain, on a record album. I said, hey, how much you want for this record album? He said $100. I said, okay, and I bought it. I got back to my car. I opened it up, and there's a letter from the RCA Victor people, who the local guy, he was the vice president, a letter that he went, when they did this thing at the White House with Pablo Casal, Kennedy ordered 12 copies of the record. So he made 13. So when he went back to the White House to give Kennedy the records, he said, isn't it to Pamela Tenure, which was the secretary of Kennedy at the time, before Jackie stole her because there was hanky-panky going on, she thought. Probably was.
More than likely.
And Yeah, yeah. So she says, yeah. She goes, matter of fact, the president's here and the first lady's over here too. So he signs the front of the record, and she signs it underneath him. So so, and there's a letter in there talking about it's signed by the record guy. It's everything there, and it's all inside this record jacket. So I walk back in and I go, hey, did you ever see this letter inside here? And he reads it and he goes, no. I go, look, they signed this. And he wanted to buy it back. And I said, no. So I got two great
Yeah,
signatures
that's yeah.
on the record.
Yeah, it's amazing what that because I like to collect signatures and do the signatures. I got a Gerald Ford signed baseball bat, and probably worth about $150.
Well, I mean, I wrote the White House when I went to the Kennedy Library for the opening in October 1979. I was a guest of David Powers, Kennedy's best friend. And he said, nobody's going to this thing except if you were a donor or you knew Kennedy or you're in administration. He goes, very special. I'm going to send you a hand invitation because he says, you're Kennedy's biggest fan. That was a big thrill to hear from Dave Powers. Okay. So I go there and, I meet Jackie Kennedy that day. I met John Jr., Caroline, Ted Kennedy. I met them all.
Yeah.
And it was something else going to that Kennedy Library that day. And I was there opening.
And seeing for you, what I notice and what I can gather is, to you is something that you enjoy. It's a labor of love. It has nothing to do with politics. No politics.
Not really.
The fact is, we talk about, Kennedy and his time and his tenure and what would he be today if he was here, that kind of thing. And people there were more fiscal responsible back there about things. So I think the differences in parties were not as big as they are now. Put it that way. But being able to go back into a time, a moment in history, to me, being a law enforcement officer, one of the things that I did, and I did some time back, when we first went to Memphis, I'm a big Elvis fan. My wife is too, and that was all good. But we went to the Lorraine Hotel where Martin Luther King was assassinated. And I thought, well, it'd be pretty cool to go there. Well, we got there, and so I start looking at the hotel. I look back at the room where James Earl Ray, was supposed to have been, where he fired a shot. And I could not believe how close that shot was to the hotel. And in your mind, you think it's a great shot. It was a marksman. You had to be this. But when you looked at it, it was probably, I didn't measure it off, but it didn't look like it was more than 50 yards.
No.
It wasn't like it was so far away and you were going to have to be this great marksman or sharpshooter to make the shot. So then I'd automatically, being a cop, I thought, well, you know what? I retired from the sheriff's office with almost 35 years. But then when I looked at this, in my mind, I kept playing things over. If he was standing there, people were on the balcony here, he was there, he came over here. So, we have this thing that we go, okay, I'm replaying this. And I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking, okay, how would he have gotten shot? When you're thinking, well, back then, Martin Luther King had friends. He didn't have bodyguards. He had friends protecting him, but he didn't have real bodyguards and things of that nature. So you start piecing all these things together that you never really thought of, and you think, wow, yeah, that would be explained why this just happened to be the perfect nightmare. Everything matched up. Martin Luther King the night before was sick, had a fever of 103, 104. People didn't know that. He was supposed to go, and he canceled going to the church that night. And then the preacher of the church he was going to called him up begging. I got a church full. I got to have you here. He went. They said he gave the best, talk that he ever gave. Well, then when all was said and done, he got up the next morning to get ready to go to the garbage union strike there in Memphis. And that's when he came out from his room, walked out onto the balcony, and that's when he was killed that morning. But he was still sick, not feeling well. And I said, but I took all that. Well, here's what I say this. I got so wrapped up in trying to figure this out. My wife walked up to me and said, honey, are you ready to go yet? I said, yeah, give me a minute. She said, you've been standing here an hour and a half.
Oh.
Looking and watching. And people were looking at you going, what is he doing? And I did not realize that I got so entrenched in the crime itself, trying to figure out in my imagination how that played out back then with all the nuances around it, that it was very intriguing. And I thought, man, I don't understand. I didn't realize I stood there that long and was doing that.
Wow.
And then I got in the car and she goes, you can't solve that crime now, right? I said, yeah, I know. I said, well, darn, I didn't realize I was standing there that long. But it's like for me, the investigations of things of this nature, when you're close to it. So I say that because when you look to me, if I'm at their car, I have to think about that moment you were talking about earlier, and it made me think about that where the agents had to go sit in the car. Well, I guess that was my moment of sitting in the car.
That was your moment.
So it's made me think of that. So and that's what kind of brought it up when I got thinking about it. So yeah, it's always amazing, that everything. And when things happen, people tend to forget that these people were real people, and they had personal lives, and they had those relationships. The things that Jackie may have done or said during all this process of what was going on. The fact that your museum talks about John F. Kennedy, and I'm sure it probably shows some of the things from his political era. The trials and the tribulations, short victories, no matter how short they were, for what he was trying to accomplish in his short term and things of that nature. But when you talk about, you walk into an area, you walk into a museum, and you see all this stuff, and it's like, wow, to see that.
Well, I think, and I believe that, people like you have a spirit in you. There's a certain spirit, and then it's kind of a fine line between a passion and a spirit. So you got caught in that kind of a trance, and I could compare you to a little old lady in Jacksonville, Florida, many years ago, when in the very primitive days of my exhibit, and she walked around, and she took 2 hours. And my buddy and I were going, how long has that lady been here? He goes, almost 2 hours. She had a little purse. She was hunched over. Now, she had the spirit and the passion like you did, but not everybody does. Not everybody sees history as interesting. They like, oh, that's really nice. Wow, you got George Washington's teeth. Great. But they don't really, I'd be sitting there going, I'd be like frozen.
Yeah, it's like,
yeah, you got his freaking teeth. Yeah. Okay. You get excited about it.
You're like, you got his DNA.
Yeah. I mean, your voice changes, your attitude changes. Oh my God. It's like, you got his teeth. That's cool. Hey, what are you doing tomorrow for lunch? Okay. So anyway, this lady walks over to me, and this is like the people I've met, and she walks over to me. She finally gets done, and she looks up at me, and here's what she says. She looks up and she says, when I die, I'm going to ask Jesus who killed my president. I mean, shocking.
Yeah.
Shocking. Yeah. And then I get the little kid coming in, 12, 13 years old. I mean, who knew about Herbert Hoover? Yeah. This is Herbert Hoover time span to kids today. Right. Who cares, right? And I'll get them there, and they're asking me questions, and I'm, and it's just, and then I'll see a mother standing there with a little baby, trying to tell this baby about whatever, looking at the car, and I tap him on the shoulder, and I did this 4 million times, by the way. I said, "You want to get in the car?" "Oh, we can't get in that car." I said, "Of course you can. I own the car." "Oh, we can't get in that car." I go, give me your camera. Give me your thing. Put them in a car. I got photos of babies, their fathers, the look on their faces. To me, this is my passion. When you collect something, it ain't about the money.
No.
It's about the satisfaction you get of showing you this and see your reaction. That's the biggest thrill of a collector. It isn't about the money.
No.
And then the presidential podium. I have a mock-up of the podium. with the Shore microphone and the seal and the backdrop and everything and the flag.
See, that would be classic to me. That would be so many
Oh.
photo ops. That's like,
That gets more attention, and then they take their babies. It's always babies. They take their baby and they put the baby up like it's there, but the mother is holding the baby from behind it, and the father's taking the picture. And to me, I'm going, it's a memory. That kid's, that kid has that picture today. He's probably 20 years old and go, hey, where was this?
Who was it for?
Who was it for? Yeah. And so the stories behind the people have been great. Unfortunately, over the last 3 years, I can't book this show. I don't know what it is. I advertise. If you go to my LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn. I advertise every single day. And that used to be my best, because my best place to get shows, because it's all professional. It's casino general managers. It's marketing people from around the country. It's fairs. It's my venue. Okay. Very, very tough today. I don't know if it's because these marketing people are 30 years old. Okay. I don't know if it's our politics of today, because we're so divided. I just don't know what it is. And this is the 60th anniversary. I should be busy.
Yeah, and I was talking about this to somebody. It was funny because we were talking about the show for tonight, and I said I'm really pumped about this because this is a me thing. This is the moment in the time of a history and a president and the life of a president, not just the death, but the life of a president. That whether you are a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, whatever you are, this president was assassinated on our own soil, which was supposed to be the safest place in the world, a free world. Yeah. And we turned out at the time no better than when the guy went over there and shot Gandhi, when he went over and did it. And you look at the leaders that were assassinated over a period of time, but then you have to look at their life, because their life wasn't that. Unfortunately, their life was known by their death, but their life was so much bigger and so much greater, and things they may have or could have. You and I had that conversation briefly about what we think, what we heard, what we know, and all that. And I think that people are so entrenched with that part of it that if the youth of today saw the feature of an assassination, the president who was killed, and all the secrecy in the governments, all these things behind it, it would probably fill up the place, because they're not looking for history. Yeah. They're looking for instant gratification for the mind of, the movie concept, that whole.
The 15-second interest. That's it. 15
and
seconds.
That's it. It's gone. And like, whereas, for me, I look at the history of things, and a lot of people do it, and a lot of people just, it's like when you meet somebody, your first impression is made in the first 5 to 7 seconds of that person.
That's right. Well, the Oliver Stone movie, he got really ridiculed for that. Even to this day, from what I understand, he can't make a movie in this country. He's been blacklisted. Okay, because of that. And whether he took his license of the theatrical license to do certain things or say certain things or whatever, I don't really care about that, because look what it did. That brought the whole assassination to a tipping point. Yeah. His movie.
So
and every movie the car is made, even the movie called The Lost Bullet, which is by the researcher. They got bad reviews, okay. And then JFK inside the Target car, Discovery Channel. These guys matched the bullet, what do you call it? The blood splatter, identical to the film. And they are ridiculed for that. Oh, it's terrible. It's junk, whatever. So, I mean, I don't even do assassination stuff, because as soon as you disagree with somebody on this assassination, man, they get violent.
Yeah, they don't like it.
So I've always stayed away. And any show I've ever done, before I go on television, I say, hey, when you interview me or at the end of it, and you can say this when I'm not there or whatever, beginning or end, could you say that this exhibit is about the life of President Kennedy, not the day we lost him? And in every single case, that is what sold my exhibit,
Right.
because they thought it was positive.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I mean, I don't know. It's I want to go on a couple shows this year. I want to go somewhere. I want to be out there. The book is kind of my last tribute to him. I would like to be on the CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell on November 22nd, 2023, because she always has somebody special at the end of her show. And so does David Muir on Channel 7. I mean, on ABC. They both do. Always a positive story. Okay. And I want to be standing not in Dallas, Texas on November 22nd. Now, I don't want to be there. I want to be at the gravesite with the eternal flame behind me talking to Nora O'Donnell.
True.
That's kind of what I'm doing. So I'm in the process of sending her a book and seeing if we can do this.
That'd be pretty cool. That would be.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. And and even a book, you don't make any money on a book. I'm gonna tell you right now. People are like, oh, you make me. You don't make any money in a book. It's a few bucks.
I've got a book getting ready to come out, and I'm not looking for money as much as I am to tell the story in hopes that some child will pick it up and go, wow, I can be successful too. But another one is it's something that I want to leave to my family. And I don't have a huge family as far as, I've got just, my family, when you look at it, they're all gone pretty much. So I'm very limited on what my family looks like. So I'm leaving the book probably for just a handful of people. But the reality is this, for me, it was my labor of love about my life, and how I ended up in law enforcement, and how I was opposite of what my father was. Had I followed him, I would have been in prison, but I didn't end up in jail. Oh. I ended up on the other side of the law. I had the badge, he had the cuffs, So okay. I mean, it was kind of the difference.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I was totally different than he was, and I talk about it in the book. But my book is about not turning out because of something, turning out in turning out in spite of something.
In spite of something.
Because
our fathers were a lot alike, because my father, he worked at Ford Motor Company. Mm-hmm. So when there was something going on at Ford for the family to visit the plant, I said, "Am I going to go?" He goes, "Nope, you're never going to walk into a factory." I said, "Dad, all my uncles work there. All my cousins work at Ford. I'm going to work at Ford Motor Company." He goes, "No, you're not." Mm-hmm. I go, why not? He goes, "Because you're going to work with your brain. You're not going to work with your hands. You are never going to come to Ford." I go, "Okay." So, I never got to Ford Motor Company. So in 1977, and the book subtitle is JFK Jailed for Kennedy While Owning Domino's and McDonald's franchises. So there's a subtitle to the book. So in 1977, when I walked into a Domino's pizza franchise, and I was a McDonald's general manager, I walked in, I said, "Man, this is neat." And he go, "Yeah, they're starting to build Domino's pizzas. There's only like 400 in the country. Right. They're all in military bases and college campuses. There's none on the street, but he wants to put them on the street." I go, I gotta get one of these. I saw it immediately. Okay. So I went to my dad and I go, "Dad, how much money you got in the bank?" And he says, "What do you mean?" I said, "I need to put this on an application for Domino's Pizza." So I got one bank account with $100,000. I go, "How do you have $100,000? You only make $18,000 a year, $19,000 a year at Ford Motor Company." Well, my dad was a World War II vet. He was in a tank commander. He freed 4 concentration camps. One of his things he went on was with General Patton. And when he got back in 1945 from the war, in 1950, he built his own house for $5,000, 3-bedroom house. So he never had a house payment. So he drilled it to me for years, which I never listened to him till the end. Don't have a house payment. Pay off your house. You'll be richer than anybody on the block, because that's the biggest nut that it takes. So anyway, I said, "Well, can I put your name on here, your bank account?" He goes, "Yeah." "You're not going to use it, are you?" "No." He says, "Well, this will make you work with your brain." And I didn't know. I didn't really listen to it. I know what he meant. I said, okay. And that's how I told you the rest of the story. Tom Monahan our spirit and our passion that people like you and I have, and there's a lot of people that have it, but there's more that don't.
Right.
Okay, they're just concerned with their little life in front of them, and they don't really expand on. I've learned a lot from other people. I've learned a lot from other people by actually shutting up and listen to them. And and when I went in there, the spirit brought me to Tom Monahan, who bunked with Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah, and
come on.
that's crazy.
What's
Yeah.
the chances of that?
Yeah, that's crazy. It's kind of like, so one of my next shows are going to be, like I said, Dean Nicopolis, where Dean was Elvis Presley's racquetball instructor, and Dean was in high school, and was like he was like number one in the country in racquetball back in the day, and so he was teaching Elvis how to play racquetball, and it was interesting because Dean got to see Elvis's girlfriend Linda Thompson, all the people that come and goes, but he's always been very guarded about anything he said because he's a very loyal friend to Elvis, and even in Elvis's death, he doesn't stand up and talk about anything that he talks about what he saw and what Elvis represented while he was with him and everything they would do. And the quiet trips to things they would talk about or sitting. How could you imagine sitting there in Graceland Mansion, which they called it a mansion back in the day, but to today's world, it's not, based on that. But it was very flamboyant back then and did change throughout the years. But can you imagine sitting there and Elvis Presley would look at you and say, "Hey, go down and bring up the 68 special. I haven't seen that in years." And you sit there and you watch the Elvis Comeback special from 1968, sitting next to the man as he's explaining to you what he was thinking and what he was feeling during that entire show. And when you saw Elvis 2022 this time, that was a moment. So that makes it even bigger. And, and just like I told, and Dean recognizes that, hey, I was a very fortunate person to see the things and do the things. But he tells so many funny stories about his time with Elvis. He'll keep you in stitches that Elvis was a practical joker. Elvis did this. But he also was an adventurer, that he was wide open, full speed ahead, and consequences, are the consequences. And they always were worried about something he may do that would hurt himself or things like that, And so, because he was just wide open on things, it was either stop or full throttle speed ahead. And so when you're around all this, and then could you imagine, one of the stories, and it makes me think, is one of the stories about John F. Kennedy used to write notes when he was in the bathroom. And he used to do it on the toilet paper, and he'd give it to a secretary and say, "Here." And the story was, "Well, what do you want?" But then she got to where she expected it to come out on the rolls of toilet paper, notes for the day or things to cover that he got out of the newspaper or something,
Yeah, well, when he was on Air Force One flying to Dallas, they handed him a Dallas newspaper and the insert, which was "wanted for treason" poster. Remember? And they had a front profile and a side profile and said he was a communist, just like they do today. And they said he was married before and wanted for treason, John F. Kennedy. So the plane's basically landing and it's taxiing. And Kennedy was drawing sailboats. And I used to own those sailboats, but they were stolen. And he drew sailboats on Air Force, well, stolen from the X. Only thing I don't have is those sailboats. And it was sailboats. He drew a sailboat. Always drew sailboats anyway. And he drew sailboats going off a cliff. Then he took another piece of paper from Air Force One, board Air Force One stationary, and he drew sailboats again going off a cliff. And he wrote the word Dallas, and he wrote big word no. He did an exclamation mark, and he broke the lead. And he's looking at this poster, and he takes it and he crumbles them up. He stands up, he throws it on the floor of the plane. He's walking off the plane, and he remarked, "We're headed into nut country now." Evelyn Lincoln said, "I picked up those papers, and I put them put him in his briefcase. She kept them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I got those two news. That's where I paid $15,000 for these two pieces of paper, all beautiful shadow box authenticity book with it, which I still have the authenticity book. But when I got, partly when I got during this divorce situation, she came in one day and stole them.
Mm.
And I haven't talked to anybody since, but that was a heck of a piece of thing, with him doing that, it was.
Yeah, it does. It's kind of like you have something there, and like I said, I collect different things. I got a autograph, a photo of Ronald Reagan with a blue on a felt pen where it says he signed it, Ronald Reagan on it, and it has the flag behind him and all that. Now, so I said, oh, what's that worth? I know about what it's worth, but I don't really care what it's worth. It's not something that I know where I am. I know what I'm going to do with it. I know who's going to get it. And it means more to me to give it to this one person that I know.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you when we go off there who's going to get it. And I'll tell you why they're going to get it. But this person has no clue. He's getting it.
Yeah, that's great. It's the best surprise.
Yeah, he has no clue.
You mentioned Gerald Ford. He came to Coral Springs, and he was in one of these trailers that opened up like a kind of a Pepsi trailer, you see, whatever. And he's standing there, and my son always went with me in all this stuff. Okay, the daughter, nobody wanted anything to do with it. And but by the way, there's 260 pictures in the book, 260 pictures. And we walk up, and I go, "This is President Ford. He was president." And my son says, "President of what?"
Oh, Lord.
And Ford started laughing so hard. Probably the only time I didn't have a camera.
Oh, wow.
Because I have a camera. Probably the only time I didn't have a camera. If I did have a camera, I can't locate the pictures. And then Jimmy Carter, this is in the book. And Jimmy Carter, when he did the library speech in 1979, I wrote a letter and I said, "Dear President Carter, I see that you read the speech at the Kennedy Library in October 1979. I was wondering if you can give me a copy of that speech and sign it over to me with your full name and my full name." I get the standard no back. I sent him another letter. I said, "Look, I'm going to ask you again." End up sending him 7 letters, 21 phone calls to the White House. 21 phone calls to the White House trying to speak to the correspondence director. I'm at my Domino's Pizza 1977, 1978, whenever he was president, and my wife calls me. And she says, "The White House just called for you." I said, "What do they want?" She goes, "They want to know where you were and what your phone number is." And I said, "I wonder how they got our phone number."
Oh, yeah. There you go. Yeah, duh.
How did Jimmy? So a guy named Stephen Shube, I still remember his name. God gave me a brain for remembering stuff. Thank God. Hope it stays. And hello, Domino's Pizza. I'm going to talk to Fred Shisheli. This is him. This is Stephen Shube from the White House, presidential correspondent. I'm an assistant to President Carter. And I said, he goes, 21 phone calls to the White House. What exactly do you want? And I said, "Look, you're right. I called 21 times to the White House. I documented that I called 21 times. I sent you a letter that I called 21 times. Why can't I get a copy of that speech to Fred Shisheli? Best wishes." I'm not going to tell him what to say. Okay. Jimmy Carter. And he goes, "Is that all you want?" And I said, yeah. Yeah. That's all I want. And buddy, it was there on special delivery in 3 days.
Yeah. Isn't that great?
That's in the exhibit. I don't know if I'm as persistent as a person I am today as I was back then. I think I was more. But, Reagan sent me jelly beans. And people ask me, "Where's the jelly beans in the exhibit?" I go, I did. I ate them.
Yeah. You don't want that exhibit.
Yeah.
It's
And,
wow.
Roba Downey, who did A Woman Named Jackie, sent me a beautiful letter back. I have a copy of the pink dress that Jackie wore and a copy of Kennedy's suit. And I got from a movie company. I bribed him. I said, you guys got to sell me these suits. And the production guy is called Ruby. It was Ruby with Danny Aiello.
Mhm.
And I said, you got to sell me those suits. I need all these flags. I need that presidential seal. I need the State Department flag, the Justice Department flag. They're all oversized. They're all stitched. They're all government, right? He says, I can't sell you these flags and these suits. And I said, you don't understand. I got to have them. These are going to look great in my exhibit one day. I got to have this. He says, I can't. I said, look, I'm not going to take no for an answer. Okay. I got to have these. So I bugged him every day on the set. And Danny Aiello was great. I said, Danny, you got to get these people to give me this stuff, Danny. And he laughs. Danny Aiello was like talking to your brother. Okay. And so I always had an agreement when the car was shipped. I said, you have to call me rather. There's no text messaging back then. You have to send me you have to call me and say the car is on its way. When you close the car up, I need to know when it leaves. That's all I want to know. The minute it leaves. That's all I want to know. He goes, okay. So the director calls me up. He says, the car's on its way and everything you want is in the trunk.
Oh, wow.
How do you like it? And everything was in the trunk. And of course I sent him a check. And it's a focus of my show. I mean, people love to look at that pink suit.
I mean,
so every movie I did after that, Roma Downey and The Lost Bullet and JFK Inside a Target Car, with the two local actors. Okay, Mark was who played JFK, and anyway. So, and Angela Blumberg played Jackie in those two movies. And I said, you guys got the car. Did you want the suits? They go, you have the suits? I go, yeah, I got them. Well, how much do you want for that? I go, no, it's priced and you can have it. It goes with the car. And they're going, man, we hit the jackpot, And I said, don't have them dry cleaned. I don't want them touched. Just, you can go ahead and, do the.
Set them as is. That's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have more fun on the movie sets. It was. I've had Secret Service agents who knew Kennedy. I'll think of his name in a minute. He gave me a lighter.
Mm-hmm.
Walt somebody. He gave me a lighter, and on the lighter it said, here's what it said. It said JFK, JBK, 12/25/62. It was a gift from the president and the first lady to the Secret Service agents. He's giving me a lighter that Kennedy's gave to him.
Yeah, that's I can't find it. I have a letter opener from the White House that has LBJ's initials on it. A letter opener.
Oh, letter opener.
And they said, well, it was actually used in.
It's white.
No, this was gold. This was a gold one.
The handle is gold?
The handle was gold. The whole, that was the one that I got. The whole, and I can't find it. I had it years ago, and I'm thinking, oh, somebody had stole that thing.
You'll find it.
But
I have some of those, but not gold.
Yeah, this one, and when I say it's gold, it's a dull gold. It wasn't a shiny gold.
Oh,
it's very dull gold. And I asked the guy, I said, where did this come from? He said that came out of, supposed to have been LBJ's personal letter opener, because any of it would have taken off. Would have, using a letter would have taken it off. So basically it was more of like a dull bronze gold looking color that supposedly was used. Now his secretary may have used it. I really don't know, but I had it and I thought, and I put it in a box somewhere, and I wanted to get somebody to look at it to see. One is when I got it many, many, many years ago, I was probably 20 years old, and I'm going to be 62 now. So I was going to have somebody look at it and tell me exactly, hey, was this really a letter opener, or was this just a prop from something else?
I'm gonna, when we get off air or whatever, on email or whatever, I'll send you. I have about 45 pieces of jewelry from the LBJ White House, and Marty said LBJ, when he became president, he put his initials on everything.
This had his initials on it.
Underwear, he had everything, and I have nice presidential seal tie clips and all. I mean, but I have that knife. I just for some reason thought the handle was
I would like, and it could mine, and the last time I saw it was years and years ago, and I know I packed it in a box. And unfortunately, I have some boxes that I probably need to open that I haven't gone in many, many, many years. My wife is actually telling me we really need to go through the storage sheds that I have and start seeing what I
get
have
to
in there. And because again, I've things that don't mean like I've got boxing gloves signed by Muhammad Ali. That's in a glass case. I got a Montana, Joe Montana autograph on a helmet, and I mean, plus he's got 3 of the championship Super Bowl tickets in there, that are shadow boxed up for me. So I got number 3 of 300 since he had 3 Super Bowls. I picked 3 of 300 instead of 1 of 300. And everybody says, well, why did you take the number 3 I said, well, it's 3 Super Bowls. He got 3 Super Bowl rings, the 3 tick, everything else. And I said, well, 3 of 300. Why not do the 3s? They were running into 3. One might be more valuable, but 3 of 3 kind of matches. So
I think when you're a collector, someone once said, "Stuff finds you.
Yeah.
You don't find it; it finds you." I was watching TV in 1980s down here in South Florida, and I see a commercial for green. This is in the book Grecian Formula 44, and it has this is the barber of the presidents, and there he is with Johnson, Kennedy, Nixon. What's his name from the Justice Department? Everybody you can imagine was getting his hair cut with Stephen Martini, and he's in Boca Raton, Florida now. You got to be kidding me. So he cuts prominent men's hair at the Boca Raton Hotel and Club. So I call him up and I said, Mr. Martini, I tell him my name. I tell him what I do. I was wondering if I can get a haircut from you since you cut President Kennedy's hair. I go, but I'm not prominent. Here's what he says. Old Italian guy. He says to me, well, that's okay. I'll make an exception for you. Okay.
Yeah.
So I go into his office and his wife, Ann, is there. And Ann cut, everybody at the State Department's here. He had 7 barbershops throughout Washington, D.C. or more. So he went at the Capitol. And he cut hair all around the Capitol, right? And he had one in the White House in the basement. So he cuts my hair, and I said, Steve, that photograph over there signed by Jackie and the president, that's worth about $30,000. He goes, it is? I said, yeah. And that one just for Jackie. I said, he had them all beautifully framed. And who was the Chief Justice? Earl Warren.
Earl Warren, yeah. The Warren Commission.
Yeah, he's got his picture. He's got everybody you could think of is in there. And I said, do they lock this place up at night? That's just a simple little French door. He goes, well, yeah, of course they lock it. I said, Steve, you probably need to get the stuff out of here or whatever, but you got a fortune sitting here. He says, yeah. And I says, you ever save Kennedy's hair? He said, well, I'll tell you something. He says, the president would get his hair cut. And then as the president left, the Secret Service would open the door and go, now, Steve, make sure you burn that hair. And Steve would go, yeah. Get out of here. Yeah. He said, but my mother told me, he said, if you listen to everything everybody told you to do in your life, you're never going to be successful. I mean, typical great Italian, advice, right? It sounds like somebody's mother, right? So he goes, and I go, you have his hair? He goes, I got a lot of his hair. You want some for your collection? I said, yes. Mm-hmm. He says, next time you come back or just call me, I'll get you a big bunch of his hair. I said, okay. So a couple weeks later, Steve died. Mm. I missed out on his hair. I did know Ian, but I felt funny about asking for her something that he tried. I did tell her, Steve promised me some hair, and I just never followed up on it.
It's just things you just don't do because you just don't do. You're like, damn it.
Yeah, I don't do. I don't regret it. And I'll tell you something about Jim Lavelle, the guy handcuffed to Lee Harvey Oswald. We became very, very good friends. Visited him many, many times, and I don't know why. Today I wouldn't do this. That today I'd be totally opposite, right. 180 degree. He says to me, he goes, you got heck of a great exhibit on Kennedy. And how would you like my suit? I said, what suit? How would you like my suit and my hat that I wore when Oswald was shot? You can show it at your museum. If you told me that today, I'd say, well, I would love that,
Yeah.
Mr. Lavelle, Jim Lavelle. Thank you. We're going to do this now. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh,
exactly.
I'm going to do
Heck
it.
yeah.
And I'll tell you why I didn't take it. And it's sitting at a museum in Dallas now. You know, it's like it's not about the money. I said, Jim, I can't take that from you. He goes, why? I know it's in good hands. And I said, yeah, I can't take that for you. Don't you have a daughter? He goes, yeah. Don't she want it? Nah, she don't want it. She don't want it. You know,
Yeah.
that good Southern drawl. I said, Jim, you know, it probably belongs in a museum. Well, you got a museum. Yeah, I do got a museum. I said, I can't take it. I think you should give that. Well, he loaned it to the 6th floor museum. It's there. You've probably seen pictures of it. He's got it on a mannequin, whatever. It's there. And when he died, it wasn't gifted to those people. It's only on loan. Right. I got a feeling that the daughter gave it to the museum.
More than likely.
You know, I was offered a suit, but you know, you're a collector. You know, certain things that I wish I'd have taken it now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and I've got things that I look back and I wonder how. I think one of the gems that I have is, I've got an autographed signed picture. It's, it's like I want to say, and it goes to how much I keep up with it, a 16 by 20 that Kobe Bryant signed with a silver pen right underneath him when he was jumping up one of the shots, putting in there. And that's in a frame and it's set and it's, and I'm sure that probably would go for quite a big amount. And it probably would have went big right after the helicopter crash. But I look at it and it's just a piece that I'm like, well, that's just something one day. Or one of the things I got that's kind of unique is I'm not a big Green Bay Packer fan, but I have a shadow box with photos and championships and Super Bowl tickets, and it's got Bart Starr, has Aaron Johnson, Brett Favre, and Aaron Rodgers on it, all the way across from when they played in the Super Bowls when they were. So, and I'm thinking, wow, that to have that, but it's all in one shadow box, and it's got signatures right up underneath of it that are actual signatures. And I look at that and I thought, what is that worth? Well, it's worth quite a bit. Problem is at the moment I don't have them up displayed anywhere, but I have them locked up somewhere until I'm ready to put them up and where I want them. And so when I get done, they're going to be those things that you can come in and see that they're there. Yeah. But the only one's going to see them is your friends in the first place,
Well, get them out, get them on the walls. Drive some nails in there.
Yeah, exactly.
I was with Jim Lavelle one day, and he said to me in Texas, I want you to meet somebody. Mm-hmm. And I said, who is it? He goes, well, you're going to find out. We went to the Tower Club in Dallas, and the picture's in the book, but the picture's horrible because when we took the picture, they were standing in the back of the picture window was bright sunny. Well, you don't take a picture like that because their faces are gone, right? I should have said, let's get over here, but back then I got a camera that either was a box
Polaroid
camera
or Kodak.
Yeah, and I had to wait for it to be filmed. It wasn't like today, So anyway, he said, I want you to meet a woman. And she was sitting down, and she's tall, redhead, kind of still attractive. He goes, this is Madeline Brown. You ever heard the name?
Madeline Brown?
Yep. Madeline Brown was LBJ's mistress for 25 years.
Yeah, there you go. I do remember that name.
Madeline Brown had a baby that looked just like Lyndon Johnson. He had big ears, a big nose, same facial structures, and he died of lymph node cancer as an adult, just exactly what Lyndon Johnson's mother died of. So whether that was hereditary, I don't know, but not a coincidence, probably. Madeline Brown came to all of the functions of Lyndon Johnson. Lady Bird was there. Lady Bird was very much aware of it, okay? and because she's telling me all these stories, and she said, that he loved me, and Lady Bird basically looked the other way. I said, okay, so I get a picture of them and everything. She says she's going to write a book about her affair with Lyndon Johnson. I think it was called Texas in the Morning. And she said he had a pair of presidential boots, well, a pair of cowboy boots that had a presidential seal on it. And she was going to put them on the cover, but she didn't. Okay, because I got the book, she didn't.
Mhm.
Let me just tell you a story about Lyndon Johnson's funeral and the three people that were there in the pouring rain after everybody else left.
Right.
Everybody else was gone.
Right.
Heavens opened up. It was a downpour. There was three people there who just couldn't leave him. One, it was Billy Graham.
Right.
It was John Connolly, who was a protege basically
Right.
of him, and it was Marty Underwood. And it's raining and raining and raining, and Billy Graham says, "Well, forgive me for using an expletive, but Lyndon's up there saying, 'You stupid ass people, you don't have enough sense to get out of the goddamn rain.'"
Mhm.
Because exactly, he said what Lyndon Johnson would say right now when he's up there, right? And a great story. Lyndon, he was there, But I met Madeline Brown, and fascinating lady. Now it was time to read the will, and the will's going to be read, and Lady Bird's there at the will, obviously, and he's clipping off. This goes to this person. This goes to this person, and then he says this: "To my dear friend Madeline Brown, I bequest $20,000 a year for 20 years for her wonderful friendship." And Marty was there. He said Lady Bird didn't bat an eyelash. So, my collection has brought me
Wow.
with people, maybe not so famous people, some famous, but people who were there who looked Kennedy in the eye. I met Clint Hill, the Secret Service agent, and Ted Kennedy. Like I said, Jackie Kennedy looked her in the eye. I almost froze. And then I actually got to drive my limo through Dealey Plaza 91 times. No, Greer only drove it once.
Mhm.
I drove it 91 times, and here I am, everybody in full dress, costumes, cars, everything, and I'm reliving my hobby.
Wow.
How many people have relived their hobby?
Yeah.
It really is kind of fascinating. It really, really is.
Yeah. It's always
don't
cool
know.
to be able to do something. Somebody asked me, said, "What would be your dream? What's your, what is your dream if you had your to do all, be all? What would you would do?" And I always look at them. I said, "I've done it." And they're like,
You've done it.
"What?"
Yeah.
I said, "I always dreamed of being a law enforcement officer, retiring, and knowing that I had a great career, with the utmost integrity and the whole bit." I said, "So I've done it." So I asked myself, "It's not what your dream is, but what's next." It's not a, it became a passion for me because one, there was no big money in law enforcement, and law enforcement officers aren't there to go, "Well, you guys, you signed on for it, and then you know what it's about, and if something happens, then you understood it." Well, no, we didn't sign on to see fellow officers get killed in the line of duty. We didn't sign off to get killed.
Right.
That wasn't the bargain. Most of them, nobody signs on to be a police officer to get rich. Nobody signs on to miss your family birthdays and your Christmases and the nights at home. Nobody signs on for that.
Sounds like fast food.
Yeah. And fast food. You always hear about cops and donuts, right?
Yeah.
So my old standard joke is, well, you won't ever see me at a donut shop. I can promise you that. They got, "Well, you don't eat donuts?" I said, "No, I park in the back."
Park in the back.
But the reality is the concept of the cops and donuts got started in Chicago many, many years ago, because at night the only thing that was open that a cop could get something to eat or drink was donut
It's
shops.
a donut shop.
So that's
Yeah.
so you naturally would be there. So it's like, what is he doing? He's eating donuts, and that kind of just stuck with the whole, and
Yeah, it makes sense.
yeah, but they realizes that was the only place to get something to eat unless they brought it themselves, But like I said, I got into it because I wanted to do it. That's something I always wanted to do. I always wanted to be in the Army. I joined the Army. I always wanted to be a law enforcement officer. I became a law enforcement officer. Those were the two things that I always wanted to do. I watched the old black and white military movies, Audie Murphy, To Hell and Back.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing is, Audie Murphy was my favorite of all time because I watching the movies and learning about what he did in the Army, and I wanted to be in the Army, and I was with the 101st Airborne Division. I got transferred over to Germany, and they signed me to the 3rd Infantry Division, which happened to be Audie Murphy's division, and I was stationed in Kitzingen. Audie Murphy was stationed in Würzburg, which was just across the Mannheim River. I guess it was the Mannheim. Was the Rhine? I don't know. It was the river. So now the Rhine River. You cross over and you go into there. And when you went in there, they had a little sign that said Audie Murphy. So they had a little sign that said Audie Murphy, where he stayed with billets. And you didn't think about it then, but nobody walked around with cameras like you said back then. You saw, oh wow, cool.
Back then.
But I always thought how cool would it have been if I'd had a camera and took a picture at the sign where Audie Murphy, had stayed when he was in the third.
You'll have to go back and do it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that it's even there now. I don't.
You can probably find it. You mentioned that you did everything you wanted to do. Out of high school, I wanted to join the Navy. So I was basically going to the Navy. I told my owner operator, I'm joining the Navy. He goes, oh yeah, okay. And then, when I went to that Domino's Pizza that night and got a pizza with a friend of mine, we were taking it back to our wives. Mm-hmm. When I walked in there, it was like music went off. It was the food franchise. Oh, yeah. And that completely took that away there. And then when I had my Domino's Pizza in Dearborn, Michigan, I'm only 23 years old.
Right.
23, 24, 25. I was trading, I believe this is in the book, I was trading pizzas for quarter pounders. And I said to the manager at McDonald's, I said, how many pizzas you want? He says 2. I said, okay. I said, well, I only got 3 people working, so just give us, 3 quarter pounders, 3 fries. He goes, I'll throw in some pies. I go, that's fine. So he says to me, you'd be a really good operator at McDonald's. And I said, I don't have any money. And I'm 25, 26 years old. He goes, no. He says, they're looking for owners. They're looking for people right now, new blood, and the list is open. I go, there's a list? He goes, yes. He goes, promise me that you're gonna apply get an application. Promise me. Okay, I promise. He goes, really? You're gonna do it, right? I go, yeah. There's no internet. There's nothing like that. You gotta write a letter. Send me an application. You gotta, okay. So I do. What do you call it? That's your doggy.
Yeah, I hear him in the background too. It's a little Dachshund we just got, little miniature Dachshund. So.
I lost my dog recently. Oh. So she goes. I go there and got the application out and everything, sent it out, and they call me for an interview to Cleveland, Ohio. I live in Detroit area, so I 4-hour ride, and now this time I didn't lie. I said, look, here's what I got. I got about $2,000 cash. I got a Domino's Pizza worth about $30,000. I got 3 kids. I got a mortgage and a house, which was only $200 a month.
Right. Yeah.
Back then, $250 or something. Beautiful brick house. So I said, they get in there and they make you sign a paper that we are not offering you a store. I said, okay. And they ask you a series of questions, and then I left. And you can't own another business if you own a McDonald's back then. And you don't have enough money. Okay. So I went home for about 3 or 4 days, and I said, you know what? Damn it. I want a McDonald's. It's in my blood. I want it. So I call them up, and I said, this is me again. Anyway, I can come talk to you guys again. And they said, about what? Can I come and talk to you? And they said, yeah, sure. We're in Southfield now. We're in Detroit. I said, 10 to 20 minutes away. When you want to come over, you tell me. So they this is the McDonald's part of the book. And I go in there and sit them down. They asked me a bunch of questions. I said, look, you got to sell me at McDonald's. They said, why? I said, look, I was there when Quarter Pounder started. I was there when we had Triple Ripple. I was there when we opened breakfast up. The only thing on the breakfast menu back in 71 was an Egg McMuffin, which was, nobody knew what that was.
Mhm.
No one knew what an
Right,
Egg McMuffin was. Okay. We had orange juice, grapefruit juice, an apple or cheese Danish, and grapefruit juice. I already said that. Okay. And orange juice and coffee.
Mhm.
That's the entire menu. One sandwich, a Danish,
Mhm.
coffee, orange juice. That's the whole
Right.
menu. And I said, when I went to Union Lake, Michigan to test it, I told my boss there, this ain't never going to go. This is never going to. Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah.
Breakfast? You gotta be kidding me. Yep, we open now at 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock? Instead of 10:30, we got to open at 7 o'clock. Oh my God. Okay. So I'm telling them the story. And I said, I'll sell my Domino's pizza for 30 grand. Is that enough? And they laughed. They said, you need about $300,000. Today it's $1 million.
Yeah, I was going to say, I had a friend of mine that years ago to open up one, and he said $1 million per McDonald's.
Well, today it is, but you can buy one for a little less. It's just a different situation now with money. But $1 million today ain't that bad. But if I had $1 million, I sure wouldn't buy that. A bunch of headaches. But so anyway, so they go in the back, and they come out and they're kind of laughing at me or laughing, and I'm looking at them, and they said, you know something? They said, we like you. I said, well, that's good. And they said, people come in here with a lot of money, Fred. Fred, I'm Fred there, and Nick after I got divorced. I have two different names. There you go. And yeah, I'm Fred after that, and Nick brother. So they said, you didn't say certain things that everybody else says. We get doctors, lawyers in here. We get people with a lot of money. We don't sell them a store. And I said, what didn't I say? They go, you never mentioned the word money. You never mentioned the word you want to be rich. You said that you wanted to be part of something. You want to feel like in a family of something, in a business. You worked there since you was 15 years old. And they said, and I got a feeling, and I know that you're a worker. You're not lazy. You got that Domino's at 23 years old, and it wasn't easy. I go, oh no, it's not easy. It's 15 hours a day. It's whatever. And they said, you probably learned more than leaving McDonald's and buying that franchise. And for 26 years old, the average age is 52 years old who owns a McDonald's. Mm-hmm. You're half of their age. But you know what? We're going to sell you a store. I about fell off of my chair. I'm sweating bullets. I said, you got to be kidding me. They said, no, we have a program for people like you. It's called a BFL, a business facility lease. You put down $15,000 deposit. You give us $4,000 to get your name on the list. And we'll offer you 3 stores. You only can take one. We'll only offer you 3. You have to take one of the 3. If you don't take them, you go to the bottom of the list. Mm-hmm. I said, okay, I got it. Now, we're not telling you to sell your Domino's. No. That's your decision. And I said, well, that decision's already made. Mm-hmm. I said, I'll get back with you folks. I sold my store. I came up with $29,999.93.
You just beat the tax man.
Yeah. Well, it was I don't remember paying taxes, and I really don't. And they sell me a store in Miami area when the Mario boat lift was going on. Okay, and that's when I went down there and everything. And they sold me a store. They said, look, go look at it. I go down there. The store was losing $67,000 a year. It's been open for 8 years. It had 3 other owner-operators plus the company owning it. I'm number 4 in 8 years. I went in there. I looked at it conspicuously. We did not know. I went in with the vice president of McDonald's. We said, don't say anything. They know him, but they don't know you. They don't need to know you. Just go in, come in. We'll get a cup of coffee. We'll sit there and out in the lobby and we'll talk. So I say to him, this place is a wreck. He said, I know. How can you people run this? He goes, it stinks. It's terrible. I could just tell from out here. That's why we're selling it to you. Okay. And I said, okay, I'll take it. He goes, you'll take it. It's losing $69,000 a year. I says, I'll take it. You want to know why? He goes, why? I go, because it can't get any worse. The only direction it can go is up. So I buy the store on September 15th. It was a Tuesday, 1980. Within August of the 81, I had this is a lot of money in 1981.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay, Rick. I had $100,000 in my bank account in August of 1981. So I called McDonald's up and I said, hi, I go, I got store number 2011 Fort Lauderdale. I want to exercise my 3-year option. I want to get a loan at the bank and stop paying you people 13%, where now I own it, because right now it's only a lease to buy. I can go get a bank loan and I only owe you 8.5% rent rather than 13% rent. I'm saving a lot of money by going and getting a loan, and I got equity. She said, how much do you have in the bank? I said, I got like $100,000. Never phased me, and it phases me now.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, it never phased me. It was just numbers.
Right.
And they said, you can't exercise this store in the first year. And I said, why? They said, nobody has ever done that before. Can you wait till September or October? I said, well, I guess I can. Okay. And then I ended up buying the store, throwing the $100,000 in it, getting a $200,000 loan, paying that off in 5 years, buying 2 more stores, later on 2 more after that. And, and that's how I got a McDonald's. It was, if you really want something, you never give up. And I heard a quote the other day. It was on Facebook or news, and it said, their mother told the son, don't ever have a backup plan. And he said, why, Mom? She said, because you'll use it. Isn't that great advice?
Yeah, Coach. And I always preach, have a backup plan. But that's law enforcement.
Don't have a backup plan because you'll use it.
Yeah, that's
my book has a lot of things in it about McDonald's, and I think it appeals to attorneys, divorce attorneys. It appeals to McDonald's Corporation, McDonald's owners, Domino's in the same venue as what I said.
This ex-wife too, right?
Yeah. Well, I have sent all the book situation to the lawyers who lawyered me up. I haven't heard back from them, and I called the local newspaper, which I was in the front page, which I sent you. I don't know if you saw.
Yeah, I was looking at you.
They have not replied, but I'm sure that it's out there and getting some bad reviews.
Getting some attention there, wasn't it? It's all right.
Yeah.
They talk about you, they're leaving everybody else alone,
Yeah, that's right.
But the thing, it's you come and go and you see things in life, and it just gets back to the successes that you make or things that you created. Everything's not a happenstance and just falls out of the sky. Just people who think sitting on a couch playing video games is going to make them rich, because in their mind they can develop a game, yet the only thing they know how to do is turn on a computer and play the game. But the visions of grandeur, what you can accomplish, aren't done overnight. There's work that you put behind it and things that you do that most people aren't willing to do, whatever that success may be.
Yeah. I was the first person to put in 1993 to put a TV in McDonald's. There was no TV in McDonald's in 1992 and 93 and 94. There's no TVs. So I went and bought a Trinitron Sony TV, put it on a real nice shelf that went on the wall, and I put a video system in that I played 1960s videos. But after every 4 or 5 videos, I had something on Kennedy. Okay, because my theme in my store was the 60s, so I had James Dean in there,
yeah.
The Three Stooges, Lucy, all that in there, and then I had this, of course, behind me. So I had more fun at that store. That was my baby. I had more fun. When the kids came in from Fort Lauderdale High for their lunch break, okay, they kind of humored me, because I would ask them questions. Is this BK or AK? And they, what does that mean? Is it before Kennedy or after Kennedy? And I would tell them something. And I always gave them, free Sundays and everything like that. But I really had a following, and it was a lot of fun. And, There's no TVs, like I said. Even when McDonald's came in one day, they said, "What's this TV doing in here?" I said, "Oh, I got music videos hooked up to it. In the morning, I play real soft music for breakfast. I got birds flying above the clouds and ducks flying above the clouds." They said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." And at lunchtime and dinner time, I got music videos. And so, you got to be creative today, and the book, the first 12 chapters of the book I wrote in jail, by the way, Rick. The first 12 chapters were actually written in jail. That's why they're kind of short. Okay.
Yeah.
Because mentally, I wasn't really all there. You know what I mean? And then it took me another 22 years to figure out how to write the rest of the book because life got in the way. Life got in the way, jobs and keeping up with this and that. When I got out of jail, they pursued me for they pursued me for 7 more additional years. They were tow trucks were going around my friends' homes at 3 a.m. looking for my car because I hopscotched my car to 4 different people's houses. And each one, they seemed to know who my friends were.
Right.
Yeah. So
it's amazing. I mean, how you end up on somebody's radar, whether you try or not, make the wrong person mad and you're there forever and a day.
I had 2 guards that looked me up after I got out of jail and actually came and visited me at my house. Now, in jail, they were horrible men. Okay. I mean, they were horrible people. What came out of their mouths was so destructive and demeaning and degrading. But when they came over to my house, they looked me up and, I made them a cup of coffee and they said, I'll tell you something, what that judge did to you. I've been working there for 15 and 20 years. I have never seen anybody go to jail for contempt of court for anything. You didn't do anything. You just a collection. I never saw anybody go to jail for contempt longer than 2 days, a weekend.
Right.
Maybe he said, and you would know this, you can back that up. He said, maybe a week. And these people owed money or whatever, but and they said, I cannot believe what that judge did to you. And I said, well, she did it, but I don't really think about it. My dad never talked about World War II. He would never talk about it. If I asked him, he'd give me a couple sentences. He goes, well, we had a job to do and I did it. I go, Dad, tell me about it. He wouldn't really talk about it that much. And, when I meet somebody new, I don't know what to say. Well, what do you do? Well, I did McDonald's, right, yeah. And when the jail thing, it's like, what? Automatically, you're a criminal if you've been to jail. You are a criminal if you've been to jail. And I say, no. They go, you went to prison. No, prison and jail is you got to educate people of civil liability and criminal liability. Okay, you can spit on the sidewalk. That's civil if a policeman sees you, and he might bring you in or no license plate expired. Plus, you have no driver's license. Plus, you have no insurance. You're probably going to jail. You're probably not going to get a warning if you were an asshole to him. Okay. If you were nice, he might say, take the car home or park it here, have somebody pick you up. That's called civil. Oh, so.
Well, when in court, how we used to always define who was a butthole to somebody is or had an attitude, we'd say, everybody quit doing it because everybody found out what it meant in a case.
Yeah.
But they would take the citation and on the bottom right-hand corner of the citation, they would put an A down there, which meant attitude or ass, whatever. And then, or if they had the asterisk mark and the A, that means we're heavy special.
Yeah.
And they needed more attention. So basically, you would get an attitude ticket, and the DA would look at it. Certain DAs go, "Oh, this guy had attitude. I'm not going to cut him any break. He's going to eat this one."
I was all done with the code.
Yeah, it was an independent code. Nobody really knew what it was. So the officers were going asterisk A or A. This was years ago.
Yeah.
Until the judge, I guess, one day figured out, what does this stand for? And one of the officers says, well, he had an attitude. So it just was to remind everybody he had an attitude. So what's the quotation, the asterisk for it? He said, well, he had a special attitude that day. Well, what does that mean? I don't know. I just put it down there so everybody knows what a jerk he was. It's like, so after that, it was like, oh, wait a minute. You're kind of blackballing the defendant before they get to the court. And I was like, you mean you're not supposed to do that?
No, it worked. I
Yeah,
had a
well,
lot of police officers, Fort Lauderdale police, because I was in front. So I had the city police come in, not too many BSO, but the city police would come in. You get to know them. And I remember they used to call a phone call a TX. Is that right?
a phone call was a TA.
I need to TX you.
1020. Yeah, our code was 1021.
So
Give me
they
a
would
call,
come
yeah.
in. They would come in and use my phone because there were no cell phones, and I guess
Right.
they had radios. And they would come in all the time, and they would sit at my desk at a closed office in McDonald's. And so while they're sitting there on the phone, I bring them a Big Mac and a large Coke. They're standing there eating it, And then they would say, "Hey, can we use your roof tomorrow night?" And I said, "For what?" He said, "We're going to do a sting from the hotel across the street."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Well, only one condition." They go, "What's the condition?" That I get to watch.
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh yeah, no problem." And they got the binoculars and they're above the McDonald's sign and they're doing the sting, and they got plants everywhere. And it was during Christmas. They said, "Could you shut off the Christmas lights?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Shut off the Christmas lights." And they nailed so many people. And then I would have my crew member. I go, "Hey, bring up 5 quarter pounders, 5 large fries, 5 chocolate shakes." So we'd be eating on top of the air conditioners. I mean, the policemen were great. And then Nick Navarro, the sheriff, would call me and he'd say, "Fred, I need 500 hamburgers." I said, "What happened?" He said, "I got a fire over here." I said, "Okay, give me an hour." "That's all?" I go, "Well, I haven't done before that." "You can do 500. I go, "Oh yeah, no problem." And then when he needed to do a parade for the Three Kings parade, we brought him in the limo. And Nick Navarro was a famous sheriff. You probably know of him, right?
Yeah, matter of fact, I actually met his son because he lived up here in the Raleigh, Durham area.
Oh, I never knew he had a son.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he had, and it was a strained relationship. It wasn't good. Basically, I'll tell you more about it, but it was a very difficult relationship. And from what he said is his dad was difficult, and was so much into his work he didn't have time for any private family life, and there was a divorce in there somewhere, and that's what I was given the top.
I was driving Sheriff Navarro on a parade with my first limo, and it was okay, and the Secret Service was in the back. And I said, "Are you sure you want me to drive?" And they said, "Yeah, you're cleared." And I said, "Okay." And the sheriff department sat in the front and had 2 motorcycle escorts in the front, 2 in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And the Secret Service was back there. I think he had a prime minister of somebody with him. Yeah, he did. So the Secret Service agent in the back said, "Speed up." And I said, and I'm very aware. I said, I'm looking in the rearview mirror, and I said, "I'll speed up, but you need to hang on to the railing, the Secret Service handle." And he goes, "Speed up." And I said, "You need to hang on." His fingertips were just like this on the bar. He wasn't grabbing the bar. So I guess I will never admit it. I guess I kind of punched the gas too hard, maybe
Right.
A little too hard. I don't think I did. Okay. He falls off the back of the Kennedy car. And I'm leaving him I'm going. I don't stop. I'm not going to stop for you. I told him to hang on. Well, he catches up to me, and he's mad. He's got a hole in his nice suit in his knee, and whatever. And he goes, "Well, what'd you take off like that for?" I said, "Look, I did not take off. I gave it a little gas, but you're not hanging on." And all the Secret Service says, "Hey, I heard him ask you 3 times to hang on to the handle." He says, "I hung on. How come I didn't fall off?" So, I tell you, that car I was driving down Pennsylvania Avenue with a good car.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to a called Cowpens, I think it's called, whatever it is. No, not Cowpens. It was Maryland, somewhere in Maryland, for a Kennedy display. and a car comes behind me with lights on and pulls me over. Flashes the Secret Service thing. He says, "My name is Frederick Clare." You know, again, my memory is, I don't know where it comes from. He says, "I'm with the Secret Service." I say that. I go, "Am I in trouble?" And he goes, "No." Now I had the presidential seals covered with an envelope.
Right.
Because I didn't know if I was in a district, if they're going to get me for, with the presidential seal. I don't know. Today I would do it, and I don't care. You can throw me in jail again. I don't care what anybody does or thinks or says. I don't really care. That comes with age, I think. And
yeah, we do get a little bit different, don't we?
I just don't care. You can say you're going to sue me. Go ahead. Okay, take your best shot. You're number 32, right? So,
see you there, right?
Yeah, Teflon. Teflon Don, right? So I said, well, who are you? He says, "I'm a head of the presidential vehicle protection. How would you like to bring this to the White House garage?" He goes, "A guy named Brown is still working there who used to work on this car." Well, not this car. And I said, "I'm going to go to the White House garage?" He goes, "Yeah." So he gives me the address. I said, "It's at the White House?" He goes, "No, it's near the Capitol." I told him, I said, typical U.S. government. You call it the White House garage, but it's at the Capitol. So
yeah.
So Mike and I are driving down these streets, and I'm telling you, you go around the Capitol, it's not a good place. It's the ghetto.
Oh yeah,
The Capitol was scary driving down the street. So here we are in Kennedy's car with the bubble top on. There's no leather on top of the bubble top. It was the clear glass. And Big Mike's with me, and Mike Potter, my best friend, best manager. God bless him, rest in peace. Went with me on all my Kennedy shows, and we're driving, and Mike goes, "You're not going to stop for that stop sign, are you?" And I said, "I ain't stopping. I'm rolling through every stop sign. Look at these people standing there. There's no way." Okay. So we go to the gate, and the gate's open. 20 agents come out. And by the way, the pictures are in the book, I believe, and they're in my exhibit. They come out. They got their guns here. All these guns, they all come out. And we get a picture of everybody with the car.
Oh, yeah.
So wait till you see what I missed here. So Steve, what did I just say his name was? He says to me, "Frederick Clare, how would you like to come see all the presidential cars?" I said, "Are you kidding me?" So I go, and there's every presidential car I've ever seen since I was a kid. There's the Nixon ones with the big handles that when you stand up, the handles are high. There's the ones with the half bulletproof glass, nothing in the front. There was every Secret Service vehicle I've ever seen in my life in there.
Mm-hmm.
I says, "Can you open the trunk for me?" He goes, "No." "Can I get in?" "No." "Can I take pictures?" "No." Mm-hmm. I said, "Okay." And he goes, "Hey, I got something for you." And I said, "What do you have?" "How would you like the lights that were the red flashing lights that were on Kennedy's car when he got shot? They're only bolted on." "You have the lights?" "Yeah, wouldn't it be cool? Put the lights on the car, and you could say those lights were on Kennedy's car when he got shot." He thinks it's cool. He's going to give them to me. I'm over here about having,
the
brain
next
freeze
yeah.
at this point, right? So I said, "Yeah." So he's looking for the box. So he says they're in a cardboard box. They've been sitting there for 30 years. This is 93. So they've been sitting there for 30 years in a box. And I said, "Where are they?" He goes, I'm looking. He's, "Hey, June, where's that box of lights that's sitting around?" She goes, "I don't know. They were there." "Where are they?" "They're over here." Couldn't find the damn lights.
Somebody else got them.
I mean, I missed them, that quick. But that I wish he'd have found the lights. And he wrote me a beautiful letter. I gave him a little copy of the limo. I had 100 copies made of the limo. They're about 12 inches long and die cast, actually pretty nice with a bubble. And wrote me a letter, said, "Anytime you come to Washington, stop in the Secret Service area. We have your car prominently displayed in our case." And I said, "Oh, okay." I went back, but
so they have your car now. Did you use it in the museum, or do you have it? Do you have one? Do you still have it?
Yeah, I have one. Yeah.
So I guess, I mean, it's kind of hard to see, when the next appearance is going to be, because I'd love to be able to come to one.
Well, I'm talking to a couple casinos right now and they got to go through a process. They got to go through their marketing people. I'm not cheap. I never charge below $39,000, but I'm a little less because I have a situation. They go through people. Back in the day, I would call a state fair, say the Tennessee State Fair, and I think I would say, "Well, I'll send you some money." I said, "Wait a minute, let me send you a 2-page agreement. Send me half, and we'll go from there." Back in the day, Kennedy was, they wanted it there, and I don't know what it is, Rick, but I don't like to say the word I can't, but it's been difficult to book.
Yeah.
Actually, I have an auction company ready to auction all my stuff at the end of the year for a 30-day auction. There'll be 200 lots. His sweater, his jewelry box, the quill ink pens from the White House. The first 9 or 10 items will have a reserve, but the other 190 items will not have a reserve. We're going to group everything into 15 items. That might be $200. 22 items. That might be $100, $200. It's time for me to pass this stuff on. Like you, I have nobody to leave it to, nobody that wants it, that's going to really take the passion that I had for it. And so it's time to pass it on to other collectors. And I'm working on a list right now. I have 52 items ready to go, but I need another 148 to get.
So do you have a book that lists all these items out, or pictures?
I don't have a
website.
No. I just have an email that will work with the people I'm working with. They will do a website. They will do a 30-day. It's American Auctions here in and Kaplan Auctions here in South Florida, and they're very good. They visited me 3 times so far. And for instance, I'll give you an example: the presidential podium with the Shure microphone, the presidential seal, the blue thing, the backdrop, the American flag. That'll be one item. Okay, that might go for $4,000 or $3,000. And then the jewelry box will have a reserve on it. Now, do I sell the jewelry box with no jewelry, or do I take each piece of jewelry out and sell it separate? I don't know.
But they'll be able to tell you probably separate.
And that's what they said. And then the 9 ink pens, the nuclear test ban treaty, the Peace Corps ink pen, the treaty with Mexico, the mental health bill, which he signed, basically symbolic to his sister who had mental retardation, the health bill. I have all those quill pens. He dipped in ink and he wrote K. Then he took another pen. He wrote E.
That would be cool to see. Now, for me, if I was a bidder, I would probably look at the pens for each thing that he signed.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's a part of that history, that you can say, hey, that's history there. That's history 101, no matter how you look at it.
How do you answer somebody that says they want my email? How do you do that on here? Do you see Shelley there? Shelley Reeves?
Oh, yeah. Just you should be able to type that right in there.
Right in her box?
Right in. Yeah, just right up. See at the bottom, it says type message.
Private chat. I see private chat.
Right. We'll look over to the you see the chat where she is. Look straight down. It should say type message.
Read help. We're in.
Yeah, it should be down here. You should be seeing its thing that says just type the message.
Mute.
Do you see a type message down there?
No.
I'll do the email. I can type it. It should come right up. Yours is 45 email.
US 35 president.
Yeah. Okay. AOL. I don't know why I'm thinking it's 45. US 35. US 35. What was it now?
US 35 president at AOL.com.
Yes, 35 president AOL.com. There you go.
You got it? Okay.
Yep, it should pop right up there. I started using.
So my life, it kind of walked in the shadow of Kennedy. And I will tell you this, I can't believe, as I was writing this book and finishing it, every time I mentioned somebody, I said to myself, wait a minute, I got a picture. I'll give you an example. When I met Paul O'Connor, who is the guy who did his autopsy technician,
right,
took his brain out and all that. I was going to somewhere and I called him one day and I said, do you want to see the car? He said, yeah. So we drove down the interstate, and there's a picture of him and me and my son. I think that's when we were going to Texas. And here I am with Paul O'Connor, the guy that put him in his casket. My life, like I said, I don't do sports. I never had time for that. I was always kind of fun making money and being in business. My hobby was so intriguing, but I never gave it a second thought. It just happened until now. I think I did that. Honest to God, I never really thought about it. So anyway, he gives me autopsy photos. He gives me 8x10 autopsy photos. He goes, I want you. I look at them for years, and then I would meet somebody like I said, I would meet somebody else, and I go, wait a minute, I got a picture of Reagan with him, or I got a pic. And somebody commented to me as I was writing this book, they said, you chronicled your whole life by pictures, and I never realized it. But my hobby, another hobby I did have was photography. So I always carried a Canon AE1 camera with me. And I've got pictures back from a kid. When I worked at McDonald's, I took a picture of myself feeding my dog with my McDonald's shirt on at 15 years old. And I'm thinking, who did I have take that picture of me? Obviously, it was my mother, So, and I was at 100 pictures, and the publisher said, you got to pay more for 100 pictures. I said, fine, I'm going to get 260 pictures. They said, we never had anybody ever put 260 pictures in a book. I said, you haven't? I said, well,
you got it now.
So,
yeah.
I told my niece, I said, you going to buy my book? You want me to send you a book? She goes, well, I really don't read. And here's my comeback. This is my niece. Okay. Here's my comeback to people. I say, well, you know what? You really don't have to read the book, but do you like pictures? So
these pictures are designed just for you, honey.
Yeah,
that's what you tell.
260 pictures. I'm gonna tell you this. It's a very positive book. I'm a very positive person. It's very, very, very positive. It's
I'm going to order it myself because I've already planned on it. But I always like to talk to the author before I. One of the books, not to be political, it's like I know Mark really well here, Mark, and knowing him, and then he writes the book. What he says is exactly who he is and what he does. Yeah. And then so any book that you read where you can actually speak to the author that does it, it has a whole new meaning because I never dreamed that. I'd read the books. I never dreamed, oh man, I might be able to meet this person who wrote that.
It's kind of cool. I never knew anybody. A couple people. Yeah. So I'll tell you one more quick story.
Right.
If you have to go. It's Christmas Day. I'm in jail, and boy, am I feeling bad.
I love that. It's Christmas Day, and I'm in jail.
Thanksgiving.
That's how the story starts out.
Yeah, Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, my birthday. Oh my gosh, it was like unbelievable.
Did the judge ever call you down and say, have you changed your mind yet?
Oh, they took me in, and my same answer was that I'm really hungry. Take me back. It's lunchtime,
And when they when did they finally release you, and how did that come about?
Well, when they released me, it's in the epilogue, JFK. They called me. They never called me Fred or Nick. They called me JFK, Thompson, Flanagan, Smith, JFK for lunch. Whatever. That's what they called me. So, JFK, pack up your stuff. Pack it up. Fuck, I'm getting out of here, man. So I get my stuff together, my book stuff, and I leave. I get into a taxi, and I say, take me to McDonald's and take me to a mailbox store to mail the stuff to my house. My American Express card was still good, okay? And I said, went to McDonald's, got me something, got on a plane, okay? That's kind of how it's done that's what they did for me. But it's Christmas Day, and I guess I've always been a giver. I guess I told you a story about Jim Lavelle's suit. I didn't take it. Okay. I guess I've always been a giver. When I owned McDonald's, it was wonderful buying 200 turkeys for their moms who worked for me 5 days before Christmas, and 200 more turkeys for their mom 5 days before Thanksgiving. I was always give, and it felt good. So it's Christmas Day. I go to the canteen, and you got your hands behind you. And they go, what would you like today? I go, how much can I spend here? And the guy says, spend whatever you want. What's the limit? And he says 10 items only of each. I said, okay, give me 10 packs of cigarettes, 10 jujubes, 10 honey buns, 10 cans of Coke. Give me 10 popcorns. Give me 10 of those funny little biscuits. Give me 10 chewing gum. No, we didn't have gum in jail. Give me 10 barbecue chips. Give me 10 honey buns. 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. How much do I got? $80. Okay, give me 10 more of those. 10 more. Am I at $100 yet? Yeah. All right. What are you going to do with all this stuff? I said, you'll see. I go back to the pod. Everybody's, it's a depressing place. Trust me.
Oh, yeah, I know.
There's a stainless steel table.
Yep.
And I got a picture of the table.
Was it like a picnic table?
Yeah. I got
with a round seat.
I got a picture of the picnic table.
Yeah.
Now, how the hell did I get that? I ain't going to tell you. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's in the book, and I'm going, wait a minute. I got a picture of the picnic table. It's amazing, right? So I go, we talked earlier about when you have a passion, you get excited, your voice. Okay. That's me. Right. So I go and I take this table and I get some newspaper and I cover it in newspaper. I take all of the 10 cigarettes packs out, which has 20 cigarettes in it, right? So 25. So that's 200 cigarettes, right? Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
I make kind of a volcano, if you can picture it. And I take the 200 cigarettes and I go along the outside. Then I take the chips and the chips go around in a circle. I take the jujubes. I take the honey buns. Okay, I take the little hamburgers were actually pretty good. I take the 20, 30 hamburger, and I got this circle of looked like a flower. Mm-hmm. And the inmates are looking at me like, what is this guy? I taught these guys how to play. They knew how to play chess, but no one knew how to play. What do you call that? What's the other game with the queen and the king? And the pawns, chess. No one knew how to
chess. Chess and checkers.
So checkers was easy. Okay, they were, So anyway, so I stand up and I go, "Merry Christmas, you criminals!" Because I'm the only guy in here that ain't a criminal. So I go, "Merry Christmas, come and get it," and they froze. Nobody moved. I said, "Criminals, there's cigarettes in here too."
Boom.
They were like vultures on a carcass of a bird. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the guard comes walking up and he just looks at me and he said, "That was a hell of a nice thing to do, JFK." And I said, "Well, I'm miserable and I'm sure they're miserable too." And I said, so I went back to my room. And the door's open. There's no bars. There's no bars, we're not in 1950. And they're knocking on the side of the door. The door's open away. Yeah. And they're peeking in there going, "Hey man, hey, you're okay. Thanks a lot, dude. Thanks a lot."
Yeah.
Dude. So I wasn't trying to win anybody over, but
it didn't hurt.
It didn't hurt. And it's funny because you won't hear anything bad about jail other than they were psychopaths. They really were. Okay. And that was my day. That was my Christmas in jail.
I used to work up in the jail for about probably 20 months. And I was taking care of things up there. And like you said, you meet the individuals and you kind of sleep with one eye open regardless. You sleep light. And I'd watch them and and what, you'd always have that one in the cell that was like the big dog of the cell,
Oh yeah, I had that. Yeah.
Yeah, you had to deal with that. And I could tell you stories that I could write a book of that till the cows come home. But, especially Christmas time and all the things, that come with it, And but one more thing. I met Timothy McCarthy.
Yeah,
Tim
sure.
McCarthy.
Yeah, Reagan.
Yeah. He tells the best story about that day and the things that were going on. So I invited him to come to Raleigh-Durham area. And he came here and spoke to the community, law enforcement officers. And we had a good crowd in there. I invited him to an Irish pub. and we had the room at the pub. And of course, McCarthy is Irish, and the whole thing that we did went really, really good. And he had a great talk. He had a great talk with everybody. Let me see. And he told everybody about the day and what happened. And I'm gonna reach out to him and get him on the show to talk about that day.
Is he still around? He's still around?
Yeah, he's still around. Last time I got any kind of message from us, hey, if I had your phone number at one time, I don't have it anymore. My phone got damaged and it dropped all the calls. If I, send me your number, and I saw that, and I thought, oh, okay, but yeah, he's still around.
You asked me about what was it like getting out of jail. It was it's such a feeling when I got to the airport, and I got on a plane, and it was such a relief. I'm going home to see my dog, which I haven't seen my dog in 10 months, 11, 12 months. And the plane takes off, and the guy next to me was kind of a large guy. And I said, hi. And I looked like, Saddam Hussein had just come out of the hole. I mean, that's what I look like, my skin, my hair, everything was just disaster. And he kind of turned his ass towards me and went like that to the window. And I'm just saying hello, talking to somebody normal. So the girl comes up, she goes, you want some ear pods? And I go, yeah. She goes, you like something to drink? And I said, yeah, I'll take a cup of coffee. So she gives me a cup of coffee, and I put the thing in, and a song comes on the radio. And it's a song that, we talked about Elvis, a song that kind of defines my life and probably a lot of other people's life too. It's called My Way.
Right.
Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention, I did it my way. Okay. Well, that starts playing, and all the pain and the peril, losing my family, my McDonald's, my fortune, my house, my cars. I lost it all. I haven't talked to my kids in 24 years. It's completely poisoned my kids. Okay. Over money. My son's kind of okay. He sees the truth, but the daughters don't. And I started crying. And I cried so hard. I couldn't even explain this after sometimes, even to you. I cried so hard. I was choking. The stewardess, whatever they're called now, came up to me, and she's patting my back, and I'm whelping. I am crying. All this pain that I had came to the surface when I heard this song. And the words that I was saying was, I lost it all. I lost it all. I lost it all. Okay. So as we were going to land, the guy next to me says, I'm really sorry the way I treated you. And I said, that's okay. He goes, no, it's not. He goes, I'm really sorry. He goes, look at me. I'm overweight. I'm old. He says, I went through something similar. He says, you're going to be okay. And, I start crying again at that point. Okay. And when I got home, my friend, Gary Smith, who owns a couple of McDonald's, got rest of his piece too. He had welcome home. His 7 grandkids were there. Picture, by the way, there's a picture of me at the front door with my dog. I mean, come on. I go, wait a minute. I think I got a picture, and almost everybody I talk about, 9 out of 10 people are in this book. Okay. And it might hit home with people that everybody in life, if you're not lucky, has a peril in their life. If you don't, you're lucky. Lee Iacocca said one time, if you don't have an adversity in your life, you're a lucky person. And Lee Iacocca went on to say, which is the president of Chrysler, he wrote me a letter one day, and he said, but if you do have an adversity in life, it's how you handle it. That's all he had to say. Something very simple, good advice, not real detailed. It's how you handle it. And I never forgot that. And I guess that's how I handled it. I just went in there and just did that. But yeah, it was coming home. The flight home is, I believe, in the last chapter. And
that's powerful. That's a powerful chapter. And I think that kind of sums up your your story from the start of it to the beginning to where you are now. And I think it, somebody used to always tell my children, everybody else, it builds character, But when you think about it, you're having that moment. Last thing you want to hear somebody tell, well, that builds character.
Yeah.
Until you look back later and you think, well, it sure changed my life. I don't know how much it built my character, but it changed my life,
Yes.
But it's like, so one more question I'll ask you. What was the number one song when John F. Kennedy was inaugurated?
I believe it was A Twist Again we did last summer.
It was "Are You Lonesome Tonight" by Elvis
Oh my
Presley.
God, Elvis Presley. Okay.
Yeah, I just looked it up. Just
He used to love chubby checkers.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I saw that. So
Yeah.
I just thought that was kind of odd that how we talked a little bit about that, but then it comes back and how the but it was when he was inaugurated. And I thought that was pretty cool because I wanted.
Another thing I like to give advice sometimes when people take it is when you go through something in life, I call it reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe you reinvent yourself, how you look, what you dress, what you drive. You can reinvent yourself in many ways. I know that women who get divorced, men who get divorced, that's such a life change. Some people could go right on with their life, but for the most part, that sticks with them for such a long time as a negativeness, and they have to talk about it all the time. And those people never move on. You can't forget what's happened to you, but it's easier to said than done that you can move on. I mean, I've been a victim of that. Okay, it's very easy to say, but I think a reinvention of yourself is something that if people really think about it. And I'm in another reinvention of myself. I had to reinvent myself after McDonald's. That's all people knew me of, McDonald, Mr. Ronald. Okay, so I had to come off of that and say, well, now who am I? I sell flags now, Flag Depot.
Right.
Okay. And
you do? I order flags all the time. So
yeah,
I need to know that now.
Okay, I do flag. And now after the book, there's no more Kennedy exhibit probably going around, unfortunately, because after next year it's done. So I'll probably just play with my book and see how long that lasts, and maybe get another dog or a girlfriend, one or the other.
Who knows? Hey, honey.
What?
Can you bring me Memphis over here real quick? Yeah. I'm going to introduce you to our little puppy Memphis.
Okay.
We called him Memphis. He's a little Dotson. He's a little miniature Dotson. And the funny story is I kept saying, oh, we don't need any dog. We don't need any dog. And
sure, you need a dog.
So then I finally said, okay, well, wait. And then she shows up with little Memphis here.
Oh my God.
Look at that little Memphis.
Sweet.
Little Memphis right there. 8 weeks.
Oh, perfect time.
Memphis. So the funny part is, I've never. The old thing is, I get a hard time about this. I've never been one to own a lot of animals or anything that way. Well, the story tells in my book. Growing up, my dad was a very vicious, mean, ruthless person.
Oh.
I used to say that if when he died, there's no doubt in my mind where he was going to go. And he was definitely going to be the right hand of the devil. And for a kid to say that about their father,
that's pretty drastic.
It is, and some of the things he would do, but he would come home and give us a dog, and then 3 weeks later he'd come be mad about something for any reason, come home, take the dog up, give the dog to somebody, and then tell us the dog got run over by a car, and he'd give the dog to somebody else. He
that's
was
horrible. Well, you're gonna love that dog.
This is our little buddy here.
Here's my my Annie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. See,
she died about 7 months ago. Had only 9 years old. She's in my book. She's in my book. She's in the last page of my book.
Yeah.
She was 9. She had a seizure 3 o'clock in the morning. There was nothing wrong with her. She was here and gone the next day. We had a beautiful Saturday. It was Sunday morning at 3. I'm a wreck.
Yeah.
I'm a wreck.
Well, it makes it tough. It's like I look at this one here and I think, for never having a lot of dogs, he just kind of looks at you like the first day.
Oh, you're a lucky guy. That's a beautiful dog.
He is. But so the wife did tell me, says, They do better when there's two of them.
Ah,
I was like,
well, that's true in many
that's true.
ways.
Yeah, with Dotsons, that's what they say. So, you know. But anyway, so we've kind of taken on. So this might be my sidekick from time to time while I'm sitting up here.
Oh, a
Never
dog
dreamed
lover
of
is a
that.
good person.
Yeah, but and again, I appreciate it. I really do. This has been a great show. I think it's one of those shows. It's not your typical show. It's an unusual conversation, and for me, conversations are better than interviews. I think just
Yeah,
that casual conversation, like we're
yeah.
sitting in our living room, that would be, the thing. And the reality is who knows? You may decide to do your own podcast.
Well, Rory has indicated to me that I just don't know. I don't really want to talk politics or current
Well,
events. I don't.
yeah.
I'm kind of like I kind of like Kennedy, and I don't know if that's going to hold people's
Well,
attention.
to me, is there's a lot of things that I like to talk about. It's not always politics. I separate my shows differently.
Yeah,
If I do, and some of my YouTube, if you'll go on my YouTube stuff, there's some politics. But I did a show on the one of the youngest piano players around, and it was Sugar. It's called Sugar Child Robinson, and Sugar Child Robinson came up. In the late 30s. He was born
a
in, I
year.
think it was 35. He came up in the early 40s where he learned to play the piano. And he started learning how to play the piano when he was 3 years old. And by six, he was playing the piano before the President of the United States.
Was that right?
Yeah, he played for the inauguration, not the inauguration. Um, it was after the inauguration, his first inauguration. And then as he was playing for him through one of his events, he yelled out, "How you like me now, Mr. President?" And that became the theme for the next reelection for Truman. How do you like me now? And that's where it started from because he was playing the piano when he's 6 years old. And he said, playing for him, and Truman liked him. He said, "How you like me now, Mr. President?" Boom. That then became a theme for Harry Truman for his reelection campaign.
Oh,
So, but this
you don't
kid,
tell Harry.
and he's 85 years old now, and he's still alive. So I'm trying to get the interview with him from what I put out there, and it's really it's a great video. So I like to do entertainment type stuff too. So it's not just.
Well, I appreciate you asking me to come on your show, and
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't
And
know
I'm
if people are interested in this or not, but
well. I think we have to introduce it to people who maybe are interested in it that don't know it's out there to where it could be heard or seen. And so I'll be posting this on the North Carolina Sheriff Police Alliance
oh, thank you.
Facebook. And then, of course, we have a web page. So I'm going to be putting this out there. So there'll be a lot of hits come off of that too, but not so. And then I'm going to put it on the different channels that through Rory. And like I said, independently, I did my show. So, and definitely, I am going to get one of those books.
You know, it's
So,
got in the back. It's got. I met Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's. And I go, wait a
yeah,
minute. I got a picture of him.
there you go.
Yeah. And Tom Monahan from Domino's Pizza.
Right.
He came in one day. I said, "Can I get a picture?" I never realized all the pictures I have of people. It's nutty, crazy.
Well, it tells your life story, and that's the whole
Yeah.
thing in a nutshell. It tells your life story. So
It's been a whirlwind life story. I will tell you that.
I'm sure it has.
It has.
Well,
The shadow of John F. Kennedy has been with me.
Absolutely. Well, let's do this again. It has been a great show. I appreciate you coming here, being the guest, and just kind of having a conversation and giving a little history about the Kennedy and how you started the museum and where it's headed and why it's headed that way. And let's hope that it'll be a big windfall for you and it'll help you to the next chapter as you start in doing other things.
And my email, like I said, is as US35president@AOL.com. And then I have a YouTube site. I have a couple of them. One of them this is all one word, Kennedy Carr at YouTube. And then I have another one that I use more than that one. It's called F, like Fred, F Nick JFK Show. Okay, so it's F Nick JFK Show 1292. A lot of videos on there. my dog, I love my dog.
Oh yeah.
And my flag stuff and Kennedy, and I post on there darn near every day. But
There you go. There you go.
yeah,
Well,
like I said, the passion that people like you and I have in the spirit, I think a spirit and passion is a very fine line. And that is what people can see when they meet somebody or they're in a situation that they realize that they're never going to be in again. And
right.
you kind of go for it,
Exactly.
Although I never want to go into jail again. But,
No, you don't want to do that again. But it's been a blast. Thank you for stopping in,
Thank you.
by. And for everybody out there who watched tonight, listened to it, and who will listen to it or watch it later, I say thank you to Fred for coming here and sharing his story. And I encourage everybody to buy his book. Go out there, look at it, and it's been a great show because it tells that story, and it talks about the Kennedys, and it talks about all the stuff. But folks, again, this has not really been a political show at all. This has just been more to me as a sitting down in your living room and having a conversation about the museum and the Kennedy and Fred's love for the process and things he did with John F. Kennedy's for the museum and whatnot. So anyway, have a great weekend and enjoy yourself out there. Always, always be safe, be real, be right, but more importantly, always, always, always be ready. And this is Rick Padgett Show signing off. Fred, thank you for being here
Thanks,
again
Rick.
tonight.
God bless.
And you have a great weekend. Thank you.